button to go live. So
You hit it?
I did hit the button to go live. So we'll find out if we're live in a moment or two. Maybe we've made it out of hell. I think we did it. We're live,
I
Hugh.
I really, really hoped I wouldn't die.
We did it. We made it out of hell.
Oh
We made
wow,
it
look
out
at
of
that. We're here.
purgatory. Hello, fine people in the chat. Yes, we are 20 minutes late, and yes, we did spend the last half an hour in OBS hell. I think that's
Navigating the Hieronymus Bosch painting that is Streamlabs.
yes, but we did it. We made it through, and we didn't die, or at least I think we didn't die. I really hope we didn't die. And we're here to talk to you about one of our favorite movies. So
Yeah.
here's what I've learned from this. What I've learned is that you should not update any application right before you're about to use it, ever. Especially if it involves going live on the internet. Oh, there's chat. They're big.
I feel like that's a good lesson. Chat's here. Look at that. Beautiful.
Beautiful indeed. Oops. Let me just sorry, I'm running the stream from my end this time, which is why everything's going to hell. This is what happens when you put me in charge of running the stream. But anyway, hello, friends. I hope you're all having a wonderful Sunday. I know I am. Today we're going to be talking about In Bruges. Why? Well, because it's one of my favorite movies, and it was my birthday yesterday, so this doubles as a little birthday stream. And I know he was
Yeah.
quite fond of this movie as well, so we're going to talk about it. We've been wanting to talk about this movie for a while. Perhaps around Christmas time would have been more thematically appropriate, but I wanted to talk about it because it's my birthday. So here we are. We're going to talk about In Bruges. We are going to spoil the movie for sure. But so I guess the first thing to say is, if you haven't seen In Bruges, the dark comedy starring Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson, directed by Martin McDonagh, you should go see it. This is going to be the biggest two thumbs up. It's almost the biggest two thumbs up it's possible for me to give a movie. This is a movie you should see, and you should watch it before we spoil it for you. I think you would be doing yourself quite the disservice by not checking out this film. So, if you haven't seen it, get the fuck out of here. Go away. Leave. Be gone. And then come back once you've seen the movie.
Yeah. Could tell you instead of watching us talk about it, go watch it. It's bound to be more interesting.
Yes, it'll be better. It'll be better than us talking about it. Don't let us spoil the movie for you. It's quite good. It's funny. It's sad. It's stressful. It's everything you want in a movie. Before we jump into anything further, uh, let's respond to some super chats. We got some super chats before we started. I guess they gave us the money before they knew we were going to be 20 minutes late. Their mistake, I suppose. Bisected Tuscan Raider. The full name isn't showing up.
Bisected Tuscan Raider child.
Yes, great name, by the way. Love the streams, boys. Looking forward to listening at work tomorrow. You're an inanimate fucking object. Also, watch A Real Pain. Awfully stream worthy. I have not seen A Real Pain yet. It was one of the ones I wanted to get around to seeing last year with Jesse Eisenberg. I think he wrote and directed it. Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin.
Oh,
Two guys with very opposite personalities on a trip in Europe. I feel like that's probably something
wow.
broadly similar to the movie we're talking about today. But I've yet to see it. I'd like to see it at some point. It's on the list.
Yeah, you've made it
On the list to check
available
out.
on Hulu.
Hey, look at that. Daily Dose, thank you very much for the super chat. Says, happy to watch this later, but I'm off to bed. Enjoy your early and straight stream. See, you spoke too soon. We
You
were
spoke too
late
soon.
and we were gay. So that's what you get. Enjoy your early and straight stream, you massives. Also, Hurry Up Tomorrow is a new level of pretentious. Yeah, so I didn't know anything about that movie until it just dropped into theaters. But this is Hugh. Do you know anything about Hurry Up Tomorrow? I hear you typing. I assume you're googling it right
Yeah,
now.
I'm searching it now because I've never heard of. Oh, it's The Weekend, of course. Well, that I'm not surprised. he wasn't he was in another extremely pretentious piece of media recently, right? Was it The Artist? Was that what
The
it was
Idol.
called?
The
The
Idol.
Idol. The Idol. The artist is no, the artist is
The silent film. Yeah, I don't
the
think The
silent
Weeknd
film.
was in that one.
Yeah, no, I think I saw him in there somewhere. You
He's
see the
hiding
guy
in
who
the
kills
background.
himself? He should be. Anyway, no, yeah, I have not heard anything about that. I followed his career a little bit because I liked him in the very small role he plays in Uncut Gems.
Where
Um,
he basically plays himself. Yeah.
he just basically plays himself doing coke with Julia Fox.
Not a bad gig. Yeah, but Hurry Up Tomorrow is a new movie that seems to be just a crazy self-insert like excuse. From what I've heard, Hurry Up Tomorrow seems to be mostly an excuse to just play his music. And like I've seen clips of him in it and he looks like he's an awful actor in it. I've seen some clips and I go, "Oh no, he's terrible." But this is
He
just
was dog shit in the Idol. In the
yes.
bits of the Idol that
Yes,
I've
exactly.
seen, he was really bad.
Yeah,
So
but it just seems like another vanity project. And also, he somehow managed to convince the guy who directed It Comes at Night to make this movie, which I liked. It Comes at Night. It was all right. It wasn't
yeah,
amazing,
not
but it had some neat stuff going on in it. I didn't see Waves, which is his next movie, but then he dropped this movie. And last I heard, there was at one point where it actually had a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm assuming it does not anymore, but it did have a 0. Now it has a 15 on Rotten Tomatoes. Hurry Up Tomorrow.
is that one positive review just The Weeknd in a fake mustache?
Yes, and his mother. She chimed in as well.
Yeah.
Hurry Up Tomorrow is the Weekend's version of Shyamalan's Trapped. I can believe that. Where he just used it as an excuse to prop up his daughter's music. Yep. Oh,
ABC News Australia says if you're a scholar of pop stardom, it is also essential viewing.
I don't. Who is a scholar of pop stardom? Does that apply to anyone? I'm not sure. I'm not so sure it
Maybe
does.
like the three people who went to see this movie.
So a couple fun things in chat. Someone said, "Oh fuck yeah, this movie is awesome. This movie is awesome. The movie we're going to talk about today, In Bruges."
This
So
movie, this is the one that I most frequently, when people, when people find out that I went to film school, they always ask, inevitably, what's your favorite movie? And this is the one that I most frequently turn to,
yeah,
as the example of
this is
what
top
I,
3 movies of all time for me. I absolutely
yeah.
adore this movie, and we'll talk all about why in a minute. Someone said, "Is this part 2 of Banshees of Inisherin?" I suppose in terms of the chronology, it would have to be yes. Same cast, same director. I think this movie is quite a bit better than Banshees of Inisherin, and I liked Banshees of Inisherin. We talked about that. What was it, 2 years ago, when it was up for Best
Oh
Picture?
God, was it that long ago?
I think so. I think it was.
Oh man.
Yeah, Banshees of Inisherin also a good movie, but I think that movie, the balance tips a little too far into the sad and cynical for my tastes. This movie, I think, rides just the perfect line. So, and then someone says, "Don't tell potential listeners to leave. You need us." Nope, no, we don't. I'm just kidding. No, we don't. We don't want to get too big. We don't want people to watch. Really, that's why we're 20 minutes late. No,
I
see,
hear that having fans is what causes you to lose more often than not, if you believe the narrative around certain Toronto-based hockey teams. The pressure is just too much because people care so much about them winning
no, see,
that
no one
they,
else is going to be tapped into online hockey discourse, Hugh. So no one's going to know what the fuck you're talking about.
oh, there'll be somebody, I'm
No one,
sure.
no one will be. I'm sure of it. No, yes, obviously, we want as many people to watch the stream as possible, but not if they haven't seen the movie, because it's not worth us spoiling it for you. It's that good. You should stop what you're doing and go watch it. I feel that strongly about it.
If
So,
this movie was actually Trivia in Washington says this movie was originally supposed to be set in Albuquerque, I could believe that, actually. Albuquerque is also a shithole.
I don't know if they have as many. I don't know if they have as many old buildings in that. No, I don't. the I don't think that's true, but Albuquerque, yeah, that could double as a city, a setting for this kind of story. I totally agree. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about In Bruges. So In Bruges, for those who haven't seen it and who have not heeded our warnings to leave, In Bruges is a dark comedy, like I would say arguably like the quintessential dark comedy. I don't know if there's a dark comedy that does it quite as well. That really straddles the line between absolute hilarious comedy and just very very depressing drama. I I absolutely adore this movie. As I mentioned earlier, this is like one of my top three favorite movies of all time. My top three are perhaps an odd choice, but it's Finding Nemo, The Shining, and In Bruges. Those are my three favorite movies of all time. And I just there's a lot of things I love about this movie. The script is phenomenal. I love the writing. I love the dialogue, especially, and we'll get into it. There's something that Martin McDonagh is very adept at doing, which is using repetition for comedic purposes, repetition and redundancy in dialogue for comedic effect. There's no one that does it better, as far as I'm concerned. This movie is hysterical. The jokes are great. It's a pretty good looking movie too. It's nice. It's shot on film, and obviously Bruges is a very pretty place. Hugh, you can tell us all about Bruges because you've been there. Um, but it's incredibly well acted. The two main actors, well, the three main actors especially, that being Colin Farrell, Brendan Gleeson, and Ralph Fiennes, are absolutely incredible in this movie. I think every filmmaking choice in terms of like who to show when and how the narrative is structured is just sublime. I think it's funny. There's a friend of mine from undergrad who we have a lot in common in terms of movie tastes. I asked him if he had seen this movie. He said, yeah. I was like, please tell me you loved it. And he said, I don't love it. And I said, why? And he said, it bums me out. And I was like, yeah, I get that. It is kind of a bummer of a movie, but I think that's perfect. I think that's exactly what I want out of a movie like this. It is kind of sad and it is depressing, and it's about a guy sort of in purgatory or in hell as he sees it in Bruges, dealing with the consequences of something horrible that he did and whether he can live with himself as a result. But it has a hopeful ending. And I think the ending really, really sells the movie for me. Like the ending really ties it all together. It's one of my favorite endings of all time. I just think it's absolutely masterful. Uh, that's the long and short of it. I think this movie is, like I said in the title, one of the greatest dark comedies of all time. I think it's like a quintessential dark comedy, a la something like Fargo or Doctor Strangelove, where the subject matter is incredibly dark and serious, but it still manages to
It's
be like
it's used
uproariously
for
funny.
comedic, yeah, like comedic effect to the absolute, like in a way that you might not expect
Yeah.
of the subject matter. It's for me maybe as close to a perfect movie as you can get, I would say.
Yeah.
It's pretty up there for me.
Yeah.
And I did indeed travel. Now, I did not travel to Bruges just for the talk, for the sake of this film talk, although it is good to have in the back pocket for that. I actually went simply because I'm such a big fan of this movie. The locals did not appreciate me quoting the movie to them every chance I got. But you know what? They're Belgians, and what do I care? Not to mention all the other nationalities just there on their holiday. But you know.
uh, this is probably like the most quotable movie of all time for me. I think every line like that is just absolutely perfect.
Yeah,
But did you have
I
more to summarize of your overall thoughts in the movie?
I think this is probably Colin Farrell. Like this movie sort of awakened me to how talented of an actor Colin Farrell can be when he cares.
Yes.
Um, I
Yes.
think it really sets the tone or the bar for buddy comedies for me as well.
Yeah.
I think it's a very charming buddy comedy with as much darkness as it has to it. There's a lot of great filmmaking at work in the movie. It utilizes the scenery of Bruges to the fullest effect.
Yes.
Um, just really tight writing. Even it's pretty lengthy, but it is very tight. There doesn't really feel like a wasted moment in the movie.
No, not really
Um,
at all. And it's
no.
funny because there are even some deleted scenes that you can find on, sometimes on YouTube, sometimes on, like the DVD and Blu-ray and stuff like that. And when I have watched some of the deleted scenes, I go, "Oh, okay, I'm glad that was cut." Because it's like mildly amusing, but it really is not adding all that much. And they really did trim the fat. There were if you find the original script online, it had a different ending when as a shooting script. The ending was quite different. We'll talk about that eventually,
Oh,
but
really?
it's not nearly as strong as this one is, and it kind of drags on a little longer than it probably should. So it didn't, it wasn't fully formed as a complete, airtight sort of masterpiece from the beginning. He did kind of have scenes in there that weren't really necessary, and then he made the smart choice to cut them. And I think the result is a movie that feels like there's no wasted moments at all. And yeah, it's very impressive. Very
This was
impressive writing.
his directorial debut, right? His
No.
first feature? No?
No, he made a movie before this. I don't remember exactly what it's called. I'm looking it up right now. Martin McDonough. Six Shooter. No, that's a short. Never mind. Never mind. This was his directorial debut. I thought Six
On
Shooter.
yeah,
I
as a
thought
feature.
Six Shooter was a feature. It's not. It's a short film. So he did a couple short films. One of them actually won the is either won or nominated for an Academy Award for live action short film that starred Brendan Gleeson. I watched that one time. It was pretty funny. Not nearly as good as some of his features have been, but it had a lot of the same strengths. Yeah, no. So this is his directorial debut, and oh my god, it's one of the best I've ever seen.
Yeah, we've talked about that quite a few times before. Is this how often is it that now I know we have maybe well, do we have differing opinions? How do you feel about Seven Psychopaths?
You know what? I still haven't seen Seven Psychopaths.
Okay, I only watched it the once,
Mm-hmm.
and it was because I loved this movie so much that it felt like a bit of a letdown for me.
Sure.
I did not enjoy it as much as I enjoyed this, but I have only seen it one time, and I know Fringy and Mahler are big fans of Seven Psychopaths, so I think at some point it would be fun to revisit that and
You know what?
maybe
I've
gain a little bit
it's
of a different
Yeah,
perspective
I'd
on
like
it.
to check it out too, for sure. It seems to me, just from the outside, that Seven Psychopaths leans more towards the comedy, whereas like The Banshees of Inisherin leans more towards the drama. Obviously, they're both funny and dramatic, but I really what I like about In Bruges so much, and why I think it's like a nearly perfect movie, is that it finds like the perfect, absolute perfect middle ground to walk here in
Yeah.
terms of how funny it is and how good the storytelling is. Because someone mentioned it earlier in the chat. They said it's natural humor arising from the characters being realistic, not clowns who shove in awkward jokes. And I think that's definitely true. I mean, I there's certainly a place for movies like, whatever, Zoolander, Anchorman, those kind of movies where people say funny things in medium shots, like but and I like those sort of broad American comedies too when they're good, where like it's clearly people trying to say funny things. But what I like about this is that like the actors play it so sincerely, and a lot of the jokes aren't really jokes. They're just like tense moments and tense arguments between two characters with really comedically differing perspectives on the situation they're in. Sometimes there are things where like a character is clearly trying to be funny, but for the most part, it's just it arises naturally from the situation and the characters. Because like Harry's not trying to be funny ever, really. His
No.
character, and but it's just his dialogue is just so fucking perfect, and the way he delivers it's incredible. Yeah. Yeah, this is exactly like my kind of comedy where like it really just arises from the characters like that. It just feels very natural as a result of the situation he puts people in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We had another
Absolutely.
super chat from Lord McSmith. Thank you very much. Hey guys, leaving on a hike and can't stick around for this one. Happy birthday though. Well, thank you very much. Bruises in Belgium, if you haven't heard. Yes. Uh, and also someone else in the chat said, "What's the name of the movie?" Yeah, I didn't put it in the title. The name of the movie is In Bruges. In Bruges, it's in Belgium. In case you're wondering, I didn't even fucking know where Bruges was. It's in Belgium.
It's in Belgium.
Yeah.
It's just a shame it's in Belgium, really, but then you think that if it wasn't in Belgium, if it was somewhere good, then too many people would be coming to see it all the time and it would ruin the whole thing,
Yeah.
which is very true.
So,
Somebody did ask also if I had partied with a midget while I was in Bruges. I did not do that. I did have a bit of a misadventure involving a couple of drunk Belgian women, um, and a potential for a public street fight. There were also chocolate titties in the windows in a couple places. That was pretty cool. A lot of French fries.
okay,
Um,
hold on.
but
Chocolate
yeah,
titties. What are chocolate titties? Are they chocolate covered
well, they
breasts?
are they are boobs
Okay.
made entirely of chocolate.
Okay.
The
They're not
nipples are of a darker chocolate variety than the rest of them.
like Hershey's Kisses for the nipples kind of deal.
Yes, pretty much. Well, no, like chocolate molded more into the shape. Like they were molded into the shape of nipples
How realistic are we
specifically for
talking
this.
in terms of
Pretty
the
realistic,
Oh,
I
okay.
would say, based on the number of boobs that I have seen throughout my life, which I am estimating at like a rough 45. Um, why would someone have to go to Belgium? Nobody has to go to Belgium. I would encourage pretty much everybody not to, actually. And that's not even just because I love this movie so much and I like taking the piss out of Belgians. It's just not, it's fine. It's fine. It's it's like it's a pretty mid place to visit. Outside of Bruges at Christmas, you're really not I didn't feel like I got all that much out of it. Um,
Man, our very, very large Belgian contingent of viewers is going to be very upset at you.
you know what? Tough.
So,
Tough chocolate titties is what I have to say to that.
but that really factors into the basic premise of the movie. The basic premise being that two Irish hitmen, have to go hide out in Belgium after a job goes horribly wrong. And the basic comedic premise of the movie is that one of them loves it and one of them absolutely hates it. And I've heard Martin McDonagh talk about this, that from his perspective, both of these characters are different sides of him. He spent some holiday in Bruges, and part of him, who loves history and loves all the old buildings and that, absolutely loved Bruges. And then the other part of him, after a day or two, was bored out of his fucking mind and just wanted to get some coke and find a prostitute or something because he was losing his mind. And so he's sort of, that was the fundamental, seed, the genesis of the story. And then he decided to kind of split those two perspectives into two characters, two people who find themselves in Bruges, having forced to stay in Bruges while they wait for word on, the fallout of this job gone wrong. And
This
they
is a little bit like waiting for Godot or Godot, however you
Godot,
want to
yeah.
pronounce it. It's a little bit like that if that was good and
I
had a
haven't
story.
I haven't seen that one, but I'll take your word for it.
It's basically it's an existentialist play, a French existentialist play,
Well, that's the
where
worst
nothing
kind.
happens.
That's the
Yeah,
worst kind of play.
nothing happens and two characters wait.
You see, I like this one because two characters wait, but then something happens. And isn't that great?
Yeah, it is pretty phenomenal when things happen in movies. I do tend to prefer that.
Yes. So that's the basic premise. And so over opening shots of Bruges lit up at night, we hear the main title theme, which I quite love in this movie. I believe, is it Carter Burwell who did the music for this movie? I should have looked it up ahead of time. I'm going to look it up right now. But the score in this movie is pretty incredible, with one slight
It is
exception.
indeed
I,
Carter Burrell or
Carter
Burwell.
Burwell, yes. Great score. it has that great sort of melancholy, sad, old European classical feel, and and when things start to get tense and suspenseful as a result of the basic, thriller premise of the movie, the score ramps up in a very energetic sort of way that I really, really like. I think the only bit of music I don't absolutely love in this movie is that chase scene where like the rock guitars and drums come in.
Da, 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 da. Yeah, right at the end there.
It's just a little like, it's all right. It's fine. it's it just I don't quite love it as much as all the rest of it. One of the things I appreciate about this movie, there are a lot of movies that try, I don't know how else to put it other than comedy music. Where like it's plucky and like, oop, awkward comedy music. I never like comedy music ever, really. You know what I mean? Where like the music is like really plucky with strings and whatever else, and like boop,
Yeah.
boop, boop. The movie never does that, thankfully. All the sort of comedic conversations basically play out with no music at all. And so it just lets the scene be funny. I think
The
comedy.
benefit of having of bringing, experience as a playwright
Yes.
to making a feature, which, Martin McDonagh was quite successful as a playwright before he decided to make the jump into movies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but one of the things, like the thing about comedy music in a movie, in a live action comedy, if it's in a Disney movie, that's one thing. But in a live action comedy music can have that feeling like a laugh track has, where it tells you when you're supposed to find something funny instead of just letting you discover it on your own. And I always prefer it when the movie just lets you discover it on your own. When it lets you realize something's supposed to be funny instead of going, hey, this is funny, because it's all plucky and bouncy and awkward sounding. No,
Yeah,
but
it'd be a little bit like if in Big Trouble in Little China, where the guy pulls the butterfly knife out, and he gives it the, confused what if it went, like it made a really
yes.
obnoxious Looney Tunes kind of record scratching. Dun, 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 dun. Now, although I am kind of thinking of now, if you cut in the Looney Tunes music during the chase scene instead of the rock guitar.
The rock, yeah, the Benny Hill
Jesus,
theme.
that would have been
You just speed it up
Benny Hill
slightly. You
music.
speed it up like to like 133%. And it's like, yeah, that could be fun. But yeah, the music in this movie is pretty incredible, and it gives it the whole sort of European gothic, sad, melancholy feel that it really needs. It's great. So we start with the main opening theme, which, as we mentioned, is quite incredible, and then immediately we get a little opening narration from Colin Farrell's character, who says, after it was done, I dropped his gun in the Thames, and then he washed the blood off his hands in a Burger King, which is just a great detail. And then
Yep.
he oh, let me get the exact dialogue. I should have brought the script up ahead of time.
Do you want to switch to the theater background as well?
Yes, I do. See, this is what happens when you let me run the stream. You shouldn't do it. You shouldn't let me run the stream.
Well, next week I'll be back. I am celebrating. I'm in Maryland this weekend celebrating my mom's 15th anniversary of being cancer free.
Hell yeah,
So
dog.
took
Congrats.
took a little bit of precedence. So I'm grateful for you running the stream and dealing with the headache that is OBS.
Congratulations for your mom being cancer free
I'm
15
sure
years.
she would be listening probably, but I think they took my girlfriend to a farmer's market so that she wouldn't be bored while I'm sitting here.
That's
So
fair. So,
they'll get back, they'll watch it later. They'll be happy.
so I have here the script in front of me, because one of the things I've noticed is that except for the scenes that they either cut or trimmed, almost all the dialogue in the shooting script is in the movie. There's very, very little improvisation in the film, which is impressive considering how naturalistic and, off the cuff a lot of the dialogue feels. There are a lot of scripted ums and ahs and repetition and things of that nature, which is it's just he's just very, very talented when it comes to dialogue writing, because it all feels very natural, flows very easily, doesn't feel too writerly, but it is basically word accurate to the script, which I found really interesting.
That's really impressive, actually, because there are a lot of like pauses and stutters
Mm-hmm.
that seem to sort of, yeah, they seem to feel more naturalistic. But that I think that really does come from him. I mean, we know that he's a big fan of David Mamet's scripts as well, another
Yeah.
playwright turned filmmaker. So like Glenn Ross, which we also praised the dialogue for that one
Oh, I love that movie.
when we watched it. Yeah, very, very good writing. Good movie, good writing, but a lot of repetition in the dialogue that sort of makes it or helps it to feel a little more natural. It's kind of obvious that Martin McDonagh is a fan of that style, and
Yes.
he
Yes.
brought a lot of that to this movie.
So the opening little bit of voiceover over various shots of Bruges lit up at night in the melancholy score. He says, "After I killed them, I dropped the gun in the Thames, washed the residue off my hands in the bathroom of a Burger King, and walked home to await instructions. Shortly thereafter, the instructions came through. Get the fuck out of London, use dumb fuck, use dumb fucking cunts. Get to Bruges." I didn't even know where Bruges fucking was. And then there's a long pause. It fades to black. He says, "It's in Belgium." Just fucking great.
And then over the black,
Yes.
we get. I know it's going to be a shithole.
The Bruges is a shithole. Bruges is not a shithole. Bruges is a shithole. Right, we've only just got off the fucking train. Could we reserve judgment on Bruges until we've seen the fucking place? It's like, I know it's going to be a
I
shithole.
know it's going to be a shithole.
Yeah. And that,
God, he's like a toddler.
yeah, and essentially,
Basically.
what I love about that, before we even see any of the main characters on screen, that is the movie in a nutshell. Right? Like, that's the whole
Yeah.
bit. There's something melancholy and gothic and sad that's kind of at the heart of the story. We get that in the aesthetics and the music and the visual presentation. We know that something has gone wrong on a job. Obviously, it involved a gun. And then immediately we jump into like, Bruce sucks. No, it doesn't. It's like, can you at least wait until you've seen it? It's like, I know it's gonna suck. I love it. I love it. It's just the whole thing is very economical. It's very efficient. It's, it manages to have a lot of redundant lines of dialogue without feeling like it's bloated, which is a very impressive thing, because a lot of the redundancy is for comedic effects. You know, like where you could say the characters could say something more efficiently and with less words, but he knows that it's funnier to have like little repetitions, like it's like, why didn't you wave hello to me today when I waved hello to you today? And stuff like that.
Yeah,
It's so good.
exactly.
Yeah. Oh, it's great.
Yeah, well, and so they're exploring the city already,
Mm-hmm.
Um, kind of Colin Farrell is skulking around and pouting, and Brendan Gleeson is, looking kind of he's just, loving the moment. He's in it.
Yeah.
And that gives us the
There's some great visual
dichotomy between these characters.
Oh, absolutely. We're following them around kind of handheld style. And then there's a little bit of visual comedy that I quite love, where they're walking down the street and, he's looking around, he's loving it. But of course, Ray, Colin Farrell's character, has his kind of shoulders hunched up and his pea coat pulled up, and he's very miserable looking the whole time. And Ken, Brendan Gleeson's character, Ken, he kind of stops at a little, riverside thing. He's just looking down the street, and Ray's just like waiting impatiently for him. Just like little bits like that, just to set the mood from the very beginning, are quite strong. I love it. And so, yeah, so then they find themselves the hotel, and it's like, I think we have a couple rooms booked with you under Cronum and Blakely. And it's like, no, we only have one room booked, one twin room. It's like, booked for 2 weeks. Then Ray's like, 2 weeks?
Thanks.
Do you have another room? It's like, no, I'm afraid we're fully booked with Christmas. Everywhere is fully booked. And so I just love, not only do they have to, be stuck in Bruges for, wait indefinitely. Like he thinks maybe he's gonna get a call later and then he gets to come back. But no, now he's got to stay here for 2 weeks, and he's trapped with this guy that he doesn't like. It's great. It's a simple premise. This is a movie that doesn't require that many characters, really. It's like, It's small and self-contained in a way that I really quite enjoy as well. So then they're getting, they're getting into an argument about, the room, and then so it's like, for 2 weeks in fucking Bruges in a room like this with you, no way. And he's like, Ray, I really don't like to say this. He's like, you don't like to say what? And then interesting bit from the script is, in the script he says, well, I wasn't the one who killed the little kid, Ray. And then he's like, oh, fucking bring that up. And then he kind of runs, he gets
Oh,
annoyed.
interesting.
So
Yeah,
in the
that
original script, they brought it up there, but I think the movie is quite smart to wait on that.
yeah, I think it is. I think keeping it so what he actually says in the movie instead of that is like, well, and he kind of gives him a, raised eyebrow sort of look.
Mm-hmm.
And Ray says, gets upset and says, "Why you got to fucking bring that up?" And then he goes and locks himself in the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives you a hint that, like, obviously we know that something is rubbing him the wrong way. Something went wrong.
Yeah,
That's
they're
why they're
here
here.
because of him, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not giving you too much. Like giving it away right there at the beginning, that feels like that would be a pretty clear misstep. And it's like, to his credit that he realized, you know, maybe we keep this hidden a little bit until the
Yes.
reveal scene later on.
Yeah. I think a lot of those choices in the final product are very, very strong. And I think the
Yeah.
choice to like save that for later is really good. And also just
But
makes,
it's wild that you would think that it would make it to the script, like, the last draft of the script and still be that way, right? Because it just feels like such a natural thing to do to build suspense by
yeah.
hiding that bit of
I
information,
think maybe he might have been concerned at first that if we don't explain why, then like we won't be interested in why any of this is happening. You know what I mean? Because like that's
Yeah, maybe.
the why they're here and what he's going through emotionally as a consequence of what he did is the main drama of the story. There's all the other stuff. There's the hitman stuff. There's all the comedy. There's the wacky, arguments they get into about how much Bruges sucks or doesn't. But like the main real heart of the story, I feel like maybe he might have thought originally that we shouldn't wait too long on that. The people might not know why they're supposed to care about these characters or why any of this is happening. But I think it's smart because it's just we don't have to wait terribly long. I think it's maybe a quarter of the way through that we find out exactly why and
Yeah,
what
no,
happened.
we get the full scope of the information um within like a movie day, right, of them being there,
Yes, exactly. We don't actually, he
But
doesn't wait that long, but yeah, dropping it
yeah,
right at the beginning would be less strong as a narrative choice. And the other thing is, I just think it makes more sense that Ken would hesitate to say it.
yeah.
You know, I think,
Yeah,
because,
well, because this is the thing too about Ken is that like he's so because they're hitmen, right? Like he's talking about having dropped a gun in the river and then
cleaned
washed
up in the
blood off
Burger
his hands
King.
and but he's such a normal, nice guy that it's like it immediately is kind of just endearing to you, right? And I think that's
Yes.
one of the other things about this like type of movie that really appeals to me is that like these are just normal guys. We're just normal men
Yeah.
doing our doing our thing.
Well, I think it's really interesting that Ray is by the end it becomes pretty clear that he's not really cut out for this, right? And that
Yes.
like it and eventually we'll learn that this was his first job. which is
Yeah.
which is both funny and I think a really strong character choice that like literally the first job he ever has, he like royally fucks up and so that goes to the whole like him just being kind of a normal, he's not normal, he's kind of an odd bird, but he feels a bit more like they feel like real people. They don't feel like seasoned, hardened hitmen so much. Especially Ken. Ken feels just kind of like a lovable, kind of
Like a
optimistic guy.
dad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Well, I love what we end up doing with his backstory, and it's very simple. And I think we could just jump ahead to it really quick. But the choice to have the implication be that he's only really become a hitman because he's indebted to Harry for what Harry did to get the guy that killed his wife.
Yes.
And that little implication that's brought up in the context of a really funny, crazy scene of a coked up midget
Cocaine,
talking about a
coked
race,
up.
talking about a race war. In the context of that, we dropped just this little tiny little bit of backstory for him, and it's very simple the way it's done. I quite love it, where he says, because they're in the. We're gonna jump around. Fuck it, whatever. I quite like that. They're having the conversation, and the dwarf that they're partying with is ranting about how there's going to be a war between the blacks and the whites, and you're not even going to need a uniform anymore because your side's going to be chosen for you. And then so Ken is kind of annoyed with this conversation, and he's like, "Okay, well, my wife was black and she was murdered by a white man, so whose side would I be on in all this blood and carnage?" And he's like, "Well, did they get the guy who did it?" He says, like, "Yeah, a friend of mine got him." And then Ken chimes in. No, sorry, Ray chimes in, and he says, "Harry Waters got him." And he goes, he does a little karate chop motion with his hand, and it's just that.
Which in the business we call that foreshadowing as well.
Yes. Yeah, a little karate chop foreshadowing. There's quite a lot of karate talk in this movie. Actually, it's pretty great.
Yeah, God, man, the layers, down
Yes.
to the small little details, the way that he executes on these layers is just incredibly impressive. Especially like now, I know that like especially for a first time director to
Yeah.
be able to execute that this way.
Yeah.
The playwright experience really pays off in that
Sure.
respect.
I just like
But
what I love about a movie like this is that every detail matters. Every detail matters. There are so many little setups and payoffs, things that like feel like just a fun, quirky detail in a scene come back as another funny, quirky detail later. Like the fucking guy ranting about the alcoves. That we find a way to bring
yeah,
that back in a meaningful way. So like just to get on that really quick. So the Yuri, the guy that they go to get a gun from, he's like talking about like
Harry's gun supply man
in
in Bruges
Bruges,
because he can
yes.
get guns anywhere.
And Harry can get guns anywhere. And he's talking to him, and he's like, "There are a lot of alcoves in the Cunningham Astrid Park. You use this word, alcoves?" And he's like, "Yes, alcoves. Like nooks and crannies." Like, "Ah, nooks and crannies. Perhaps this is a better word, yes? Ah, nooks and crannies." And it's just kind of
Rather than alcoves. Yeah.
yeah. Like, obviously, he's a goofy, eccentric character. Just a fun little detail that the guy who gets guns from is like trying a little too hard to like use relatable words in English. He's like, he's having fun practicing his English and all that, and he's trying to, you know, relate to him and all that sort of stuff. It's a fun little goofy character. But then later he mentions the alcoves again when he's talking to Harry, and then when Harry goes to confront Ken at the end, the alcoves thing gets brought up not just as like funny little reference to like, oh, that guy's strange, but it also it serves the story in that like you have this little moment where Harry is there to confront Ken and probably kill him, but they have this little moment where they get to sort of like bond over how weird Yuri is, and both they share a little.
He does yoga.
He does yoga. Yeah, he does a little. They have a little laugh about how strange Yuri is, and it's all in Ray Fiennes' performance. But in that little moment, he kind of smiles because it's funny, and then the smile fades again when he realizes he kind of remembers why he's here. But there's that just a little look of recognition on Ray Fiennes' face where he's just like, "Oh yeah, I like Ken. This sucks that I have to do this because I like Ken and I get along with him and we've been friends for a long time." Or like, a certain kind of friend for a long time. Like, and so
Yeah.
little details like that, little setups and payoffs, it's not just a goofy, eccentric character detail for Yuri that goes nowhere. It comes back in a little character moment between Harry and Ken where they get to share a little laugh, have that little moment where they go like, "Oh right, we do kind of like each other a little bit." And so that makes what he has to do even worse. And the movie's just full
Yeah.
of little comedic setups and payoffs, dramatic setups and payoffs. You get the feeling like you do with any really good movie where like every detail matters, every detail is meaningful. You feel like you're in good hands being shepherded along through this, narrative by someone who's like, "No, don't worry, everything you're seeing, every detail matters. Like you're rewarded for paying attention." All the sort of stuff that you get from a great movie that seems kind of vanishingly rare nowadays, unfortunately.
Yeah.
where even like some
Yeah.
of the movies that get like lauded as some of the best of the year just fail to do basic setup and payoff and fail. Like, it drives me
Well,
crazy.
like when we were talking about Sinners
Yes, I was
the other day, right? Like,
just
not
about
to
to
bring
mention
all of that
Sinners.
back up, but
Incredibly good
yeah,
reviews for Sinners, but every review is like, yeah, it's kind of a mess. And it's like, well, the fact that it's a mess is not a good thing. Like, your job as an artist to make it not a mess. That's the
yeah,
point.
and like there's a lot of setups that have no payoff
Exactly.
in that movie, which
Exactly.
is one of those disappointing things because you can kind of see where they might have come in and rewarded you for investing your time and attention in it, but it just doesn't go that way because it's in the hands of a less talented writer.
Yeah.
I think that's
I think we
pretty
should,
much,
yeah, we should stop giving people credit for like taking big swings but not connecting the dots or following through, because connecting the dots, following through, having it all be meaningful and relevant and important, that is what your job is as an artist. Like, that's the point. That's what you're trying to do. That's what art means. Like, art coming from the original like Latin meaning to fit pieces together. That is the job, is to fit all the
yeah.
pieces together. If you can't do that, then you haven't done a good job. So
Yeah.
that's why I
Male
like
Council
movies
of
like this.
Karen's
Go ahead.
Male Council of Karen's also mentions a great writer in the mold of Edgar Wright, and it's interesting that you bring that up because this came out, a couple months after um, Hot Fuzz, which is another one of I would say maybe not, or about a year after Hot Fuzz, which has a lot of the similar sorts of comedic. It's more hard comedy than this one,
I
right?
would say
But it's
so,
got a
yeah.
similar set of characters and payoffs, very little wasted time in the way that it drives you through, and it has these moments like Yuri, or the Eric the gay blind boy, who they like they're in here for a reason, and they come back later and pay off in a joke or a quip or something that happens later, something very subtle. So I think that those two movies are like they're sort of like opposite ends of a similar coin, Like they've
Yes.
got very one of them's much more leaning into the comedy, one of them's more, a dark dramedy, you could call it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, but
it's a good
of
couple
a
of
kind.
years there. A good,
I would say.
yeah,
I mean, I love Hot Fuzz too. Hot Fuzz is another movie, possibly even more than In Bruges, that like is just, it's set up and payoff of the movie.
yeah,
Like it's
exactly.
that's one of the most tightly wound scripts of all time as far as I'm concerned. But this movie is just, it's the same sort of way where like every detail matters, even when things just feel like fun little quirks. It's like, we're gonna use them meaningfully throughout the film. And so yeah, so the initial introduction, we find out that something's gone wrong. We found out whatever went wrong is very upsetting to Ray as a result. And then, they're wandering around Bruges, they're sightseeing. I like it when they're riding on the canal, and he's like, "You think this is good?" And he's like, "What?" It's like, seeing, looking at all the old buildings and that. And it's like, "It's called sightseeing, Ray." And then they're wandering around, they're in the they're looking at the big clock tower, and there's a great music cue. It's like the ba 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 da ba da, like that little music cue that happens
Yeah,
at the dramatic moment later happens here before anything super dramatic has happened. Just sort of like musically pointing out to you like, this clock tower is going to be important. Like, this is an important location where shit is going to go down later. It's a nice little bit of musical foreshadowing. And then he's like, "Oh, we should go up and see the clock tower," and he doesn't want to at all. And he's like, "Ray, you're about the worst tourist in the world." And then we get one of my favorite lines in the movie. Hugh, do you want to take this one?
uh, I'm having trouble remembering
Oh,
which
okay.
one.
He says like, "Listen, Ken, I grew up in Dublin. I love Dublin.
I grew up in
Maybe
Dublin. Yeah, I
if
love Dublin. Yes, yes, yes. Because I gave this one to. This is one of the ones that the locals, the locals who were showing me around Bruges did not appreciate when I said it
maybe if I
to
was born
them.
on a farm and was
If I
retarded."
was born on a farm and was retarded, then Bruges might impress me, but I wasn't, so it doesn't. He like
Kind of goes up, yeah.
he puts, it's great. Uh,
I'm noticing that the video of the trailer is like kind of lagging and struggling a bit, so I'm gonna go back to the intro screen. But we'll keep talking about the movie.
Sounds fine.
Anyway, so yes, maybe if he was born on a farm and was retarded, Bruges might impress him, but it doesn't. So he
He
goes,
wasn't, so it doesn't.
yes, and Ken, so he takes his coins. There's another little detail here. There's like all these little character interactions with, idiosyncratic characters throughout Bruges, finding their full fulfillment later in the story. It's great. So he goes to the guy at the clock tower and he's like, oh, let me get out my coins. And he's counting them out. He gets to 4.90 and the entry is €5. And he's like, oh, come on, man. It's only 10 cents.
It's like it takes his like a comically long time, and
Yeah.
he's just figuring out me coins, like, oh, just I'm just a silly little Irishman. What do I know about euros? What is this? Yeah, will you take 4.90? And
It's
the
like entry
Belgian
is
man just
€5.
tap tap tap. Entry is €5. Come on, man, it's only 10 cents. Tap tap tap. Entry is €5.
And then he pulls out a big bill that he has to break, and then I quite like he's like, you happy in your work? He says very happy with like a frown on his face. It's great. It's a great little detail because that guy obviously is going to come back later when they want to go up to the clock tower to have their little confrontation. They're trying to get away from all the Belgians and all the other people just on their holidays, and so they try to go up to the clock tower because no one will be up there. But they've closed the clock tower. We'll get to why they closed it in a minute. And and Harry gets into an argument. He's like, "Come on, man, we'll only be a minute." He tries to hand him. It's not clear how much money he tries to bribe him with. He's like, "Come on, we'll only be like 20 minutes." And then he crumples it up, throws it back in Harry's face, and then he uses his finger, like jabs directly into his forehead. It's like, the tower is closed.
This evening, understand, Englishman?
Yeah, and then we cut to, and then because he chooses the right time to cut to everyone, we cut to Ken, and Ken has his look on his face like, uh-oh, here we go, and he like gets out of the way so Harry can beat that guy, I don't know, presumably to death, or at least knock him out. He pistol whips him pretty hard, and we do that fun thing where we see his shadow on the wall like being cast as he's beating this guy with the butt of his pistol. It's pretty great. But that's how he comes back into the story later. So Ken goes up to the clock tower and he's looking around. We get this really great shot, this little great use of a zoom lens where we see Ken just sort of like walking around in the little town square, and he's kind of shuffling his feet and kicking at nothing, being like a moody schoolboy. And so Ken, like we're zooming in on him, and then we zoom out to reveal Ken with his little finger gun. He's like, "Pew!" Which is a nice little bit of foreshadowing as well.
Another bit of foreshadowing. Another really well, and like setting it up and then not fully paying it off, right? Because so what we get the impression of here, without dialogue, is that Ken Ken believes this is a great vantage point. You could shoot down. There you go. He's not aware of what he has to do yet. He has not the full scope of the job has not been revealed to him.
Yes. And I think even if he has a gut feeling what this might be about, he's kind of not. He's refusing.
Yeah, he's denying it.
Yeah, he's in denial about
refusing to acknowledge it. But we get that that little finger gun thing, right? So that later on, when Ray is in danger and is down in the courtyard beneath the clock tower, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Ken has a moment where he feels like he needs to save him. We know what he's gonna do before the movie tells us, right?
Yeah.
Like Ken is wounded in the staircase of the clock tower. Harry is running down to get Ray, who is in the courtyard, and Ken is like, we know that if Ken can make it back up to the top of the clock tower
mm-hmm.
at the end to use his gun, he has a chance to save Ray, right? Yeah. By doing this. That is excellent setup for a scenario later on, right? Yeah. And it has happened. This is what, are we even 15 minutes into the movie?
I think it's less at this point. Yeah.
We are less than 15 minutes in, and we're setting up the stakes of the finale already.
Yeah.
And then we're going to subvert it Like
We're gonna subvert the, like, you might think that
yeah.
the obvious foreshadowing here might be that like Ken kills Ray, but we're
But
actually
when he gets up there, there's fog all you know. There's it's misty, it's foggy. He
yeah
can't see,
yeah.
so he can't use the gun to do it. He has to come up. So it's 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 brilliant. It's such a brilliant stroke of writing right there that
And it's almost
just
all
immediately
nonverbal
sells it.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is, I feel like a lot of
And it's
times.
such a natural thing to do. Like it's one of the first things that I don't know. It's like one of the first things. I mean, I had seen the movie, but it is one of the first things that I had thought to do when I got up to the top of the tower and looked down at everybody. It's just like you can just you
Point your
just
little finger gun and
think
go.
about put a little finger gun and go. Pew, you know,
How very American of
I
you.
mean, it very yes
Speaking
indeed.
of Americans, then we cut back down to the street level. Ray is sitting.
Funnily enough,
Go ahead.
they give the Americans the big fat like obviously one thing that I would also just like to mention Mayoral Council of Cairns when we were talking about the if I was born on a farm and was retarded Bruges might impress me. Mayoral Council of Cairns said now he would have to say if I was neurodivergent and born on a farm. um, this movie came out at what I would say is maybe the perfect time for non-PC comedy
Yeah,
back when you could get away with
it
this
was
kind of shit.
it was right in that sweet spot. Isn't it the same year as Tropic Thunder, 2008?
I think it is, yeah, 2008.
Yeah, yeah. Top Tropic Thunder also 2008. Yeah, it's that perfect sweet spot. It's
Yeah,
funny
right
because
when we were starting to break down those rules about what you could or could not say, and before, the pendulum swung back very hard in the other direction. This is kind of like the perfect sweet spot for, having people speak in this way on screen
yeah.
and have it be, I mean, acceptable is one thing. It
Well, it's
feels very much
interesting.
like what this
It,
character would do, right? Like
it yeah,
this
it's
is what it
interesting
feels like.
because he still did that. Like I think he pushed a lot of those sort of boundaries in Three Billboards Outside of Ebbing, Missouri as well. Like I remember when that movie came out, I was kind of shocked that more people weren't upset about it. Some people were,
Yeah.
because that movie has some quite challenging things happen in it for people that are very progressive, I guess you would say. Especially with oh god, Sam Rockwell's character. His whole
Yeah.
his whole backstory, and that he turns out to be something of a hero of the movie, all that sort of stuff. I thought Three Billboards was like pretty good, but not on the level of In Bruges, in my opinion. But it's interesting that he even managed to do some pretty bold things in that movie, and then it was still nominated for Best Picture, which is interesting too. So it's weird
Yeah,
how it
I
can.
mean, doesn't Frances McDermott call one of the reporters a retard, like
Yeah, I'm
as
pretty
she's
sure. Yeah,
driving
she's
by?
driving by, and it's very funny. It's a great word.
It is.
I
It's
say
it
it too much personally, but it's because it's a great word.
fantastic word. A lot of hard R's from Jamie in this.
Yeah. So where were we? Yeah, so we're back on the street level, and some very
Oh yeah, I was gonna say it's funny that the Americans catch the fat thing here because I can tell you from experience, Belgians are not much better. Yeah, I know they think they are. They're not. Their
were
diet consists almost entirely of French fries. All right, like they're not doing so hot.
do you
French fries and very heavy beer.
do you think it was any better in like 2007, 2008?
I wouldn't. I would be shocked if
Yeah.
it was, honestly.
That's all right. We can take the joke. We can take the Americans are fat
Oh
joke.
yeah,
So three rather rotund Americans, and you can tell they're Americans by everything about them. Um, walk up. The guy's got a Yankees baseball hat on. If that wasn't enough, if everything else wasn't enough to give it away, and they're like, "Have you been to the top?" And they just start. They, of course, another very American thing. They just start randomly talking to a stranger. And he's like, "What? Oh yeah, yeah, it's rubbish." It's like, really?
really.
The tour.
Guidebook says it's must see.
He's like, yeah, but you lot ain't going up
You
there.
lot ain't going up there.
And I'm
Pardon
not
me,
being
why not?
funny. Yeah. It's like
It's all windy stairs and all. I'm not being funny.
it's like what are you trying to say? What am I trying to say? You're a load of fucking elephants. And another great bit of visual comedy. So he gets really mad at being called a bunch of fucking elephants, and so he tries to punch Ray, but he gets out of the way quite easily. And then the shot just is rather locked off, and they just like run in and out of the frame, like almost like Scooby Doo style. It's pretty great. Where he's chasing after
Come
him.
on, leave it, fatty.
Leave it, fatty. Yeah. And he gets winded very, very quickly, and he gives up.
As you might expect.
And as they're walking, it was like, you're just the rudest man, the rudest man.
And this is when Ken re-enters the scene.
Yes.
Right. So like Ken's just like that's all he's getting. And this like he goes, "What's that about?" And we get one of my favorite faces from Colin Farrell in this movie. Let me see if I can find it real quick.
Furious typing sounds. Type, 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 type.
That's how I do. I can indeed get this. I'll send it to you.
All right, you send it to me, and I'll drop it in there. But yes, Colin Farrell makes some absolutely amazing faces in this movie, and it's because he has superhuman eyebrows, among other things. He has this ability that it seems like not many people have, where he can like furrow his brows in a way that they come up in the middle and down on the sides.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. It's a little bit like the Emilia Clarke eyebrows.
Yes, she has that ability as well. Yeah, he's got just absolutely crazy eyebrows. Let's see. You keep talking. I'll put the image on screen.
Well, yeah, he makes the face and like, oh, I don't know, I didn't do anything. And
why I have no idea why they're so upset.
Yeah, no idea, no clue. And Ken turns around and is like, they're not going up there, are they? Guys, I wouldn't go up there. It's really narrow. And she turns around, screw you, motherfucker. And he's very off put by that. He turns around to Ray, and Ray's just like, Americans, isn't it? Which is, it's a great comedy scene, man. We're starting off with a bang. Really early on.
I am so bad at using OBS, Hugh.
It's all right. We've disappeared from the screen. We have at this point.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. You know what? Fuck it. You know what? It's fine. Are we back on the screen yet?
We're back.
Okay. You know what? I'm just not putting the image on screen because apparently I don't know how to do it. I'm a boomer. I'm getting old. That's what happened. I got 1 year older and now I don't know how to use technology. So we're just not going to bother putting the image on screen. You can just imagine it. He makes a really great face. All right.
He makes a lot of very funny faces in this movie.
It's all right. You're not supposed to be here unless you've seen the movie anyway. So hopefully you can picture it in your head.
That's true.
It's always interesting how universally recognizable certain eyebrow furrows and raises are, despite almost nobody being able to do them. Yeah, and I don't know, he just does it so effortlessly. That thing where they come up in the middle, it's so good. And that's the sort of stuff. If you listen to Martin McDonagh talk about it, that's the kind of stuff that is improvised and brought by the actors, like certain facial expressions and body movements that weren't scripted, because otherwise, basically all the words are in the script. And so that's what he's bringing to the table. So yes, the Americans, screw you, motherfucker. That's great. And so then they're off to the pub, and this is now Ray is happy because he's in his element. One gay beer for my gay friend.
One gay beer for my gay friend, and one normal beer for me because I am normal.
It's like, this is the life. And
which, you know what, I can agree with that. Drinking in Belgium was probably the most fun that I had. Very, very good beer they have there. Duvel is pretty phenomenal. I don't know if you've ever had a Duvel. This is just a brief little rant, but the way that they pour it, it creates like a little tornado in the bottom of the glass that just sort of lingers there for the duration, like until you finish it, basically. Which is pretty impressive, and it tastes amazing. I think I had four of those in between climbing the tower and walking the canals to look at all the old buildings and that. Um, it's a pretty great way to experience the city. I am with Ray on this one. This is the
This
life.
is the life. It's funny if you read the script, it says DIS is DUH, and then life is spelled LOIF. So it's like the accent is built into the screenplay, which is pretty funny. This is the life. It's pretty great. It's like we're not staying here getting pissed. We're quietly sightseeing, like he says, and awaiting his call to see what we do next. And so he mentioned something about like there isn't anything in the newspaper. Like, come on. And he says, it's like, my vote is we quietly sightsee, like he says, and await his call to see what we do next. And he's like, you don't even know that we're not here hiding out. He's like, he takes a pause. He's like, what are you talking about? He's like, you don't even know that we're not here on a job. And this is like that, like, clumsy but funny repetition that I love so much in his work. So he's like, you don't even know that we're not here on a job. He says, what, on a job? Yeah. Here in Bruges? Yeah. Here in Bruges on a job? Yeah. And
I love God, man, I love the way he uses the dialogue in this movie.
he's like, don't you think it's a bit fucking over elaborate, isn't it? Go take him to hide out. Go take him to hide out where? Go take him to hide out in fucking Bruges?
You can hide out in
Croydon, he says.
Croydon.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
even there, there's the repetition. Go take him to hide out. Go take him to hide out where? Go take him to hide out in fucking Bruges. It's just, it's got a musical quality to it, just because it, like, people, if someone says something a certain way in their answer, they almost say it exactly in that way. They use the exact same wording to give it this sort of
Yeah.
like lyrical bouncy repetition. It's great. And then the ums and ahs are scripted in here too, because then Ray, once he sort of realizes, like, yeah, maybe it is a little elaborate that we're here in Bruges. You could hide out in Coventry, he says as well. So he goes, or Coventry. It is a bit over elaborate. But we ain't got no guns. It says Harry can get guns anywhere and cut. Great. Like, every scene ends in like the punchiest place too. Because what does that imply? Like, okay, so maybe they are here on a job in Bruges, because it is a bit over elaborate, as they keep saying. But Harry can get guns anywhere. That's obviously a setup for what happens later. But it also does a little bit of making Harry seem like an important and intimidating and powerful figure, right? Which is really important, because he's not going to be on screen until something like halfway through the movie, maybe even later. We'll hear his voice. I think that's around halfway through the movie. But his presence is felt all throughout the movie. Like, the longer it goes on, the more you're like, okay, Harry is a force of nature. Harry is very powerful. Harry is very dangerous. He's very angry and irritable. And so Harry can get guns anywhere. Cut. Perfect. So then,
very, like, in the scene as quick as possible, or as late as possible, out of it as early as possible. Very, very, very solid principles of screenwriting there. He's doing it throughout the movie, right? Like,
yeah, you're being
just
yeah,
very snappy, very witty.
yeah, very well edited too. I don't think we've mentioned that yet. I think the editing in this movie is fucking incredible. Just because so much of comedy is timing and editing, right? And like, you can have the funniest script, because I mean, just reading the script on the page, it's very funny, but you can ruin good writing and good performances with bad editing. It's one of the most important things. I think it's the most important part of the filmmaking process. Like, good editing can really bring a scene to life, and who you cut to when, whether you hang on a two-shot, like for the scenes in the pub with Ray and Ken, like, they're just hanging on a two-shot, but later scenes when they're kind of going back and forth between them, when you cut to a person listening is just as important as the writing on the page. And this movie is just immaculately edited. The timing and the rhythm of the cut, it's just as bouncy and lyrical as the writing itself, and it's masterful. Mwah. Yeah, Martin McDonagh is British / Irish. The Irish have always been great at writing lyrical dialogue. Yeah, there's definitely something. There's something in the way they speak and their accents that I feel like Martin McDonagh's work, like in Three Billboards, for example, writing for American characters just isn't quite as strong as it is for writing Irish characters like he does in this movie. There's something lost in translation, if you will. I think when he's writing for Irish characters, his dialogue really sings. Like when I watched Three Billboards, there was a lot of funny stuff that happened in that movie, but a lot of the dialogue felt, yeah, it just didn't feel authentic to me. It didn't feel culturally specific. You know, like the way people talked, the way people cursed. It just felt like an outsider writing American characters. And I also feel that way about Edgar Wright's work. I think he's at his best when he's writing for British characters. I didn't like Scott Pilgrim as much. You know, I really don't like Baby Driver very much at all, honestly. But you know, Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead, he just there's a real strength that comes through when he's writing for those accents and those slang terms and all that sort of fun stuff. What did you think of the Banshees of Inisherin? We talked about it a little bit already, but I like the Banshees of Inisherin. I think it's good. I like it a bit more than Three Billboards, but I think both of those movies are lesser compared to In Bruges. The ending of Banshees of Inisherin has just a very, very depressing, cynical note to it that I don't quite love.
Yeah. I really like Banshees. I want to like Banshees more than I do.
Yeah, yeah. That's how I feel about it too. But one of the things I
Yeah.
mentioned while you were gone is that I think for him, for Martin McDonagh and for Edgar Wright, I think they're both way better when they're writing for British and Irish characters. Um,
Yeah, I think that was one of the problems that I did have with Seven Psychopaths, right? Is
yeah,
that like the way that he writes, and I think it's something that it's hard to describe, but I think that the way he writes just fits better
yeah.
with
Well,
people
he's
speaking
just.
with
I think he's
English
just
or
more
Irish
familiar.
accents.
He's more familiar with all the nuances and fun you can have with the slang, with the accents. Like that he scripted in like this is the life, LOIF. You know what I mean, to make it clear that he really leans into the Irish for that line. You know what I mean? Like that's the kind of fun you can have when you're really knowledgeable and
Yeah.
familiar with the native, way of speaking. And I just don't feel like he was quite on that level with American speech. When three
Yeah.
billboards, like I mentioned, it's just like this is funny, but this doesn't really feel authentic in the same.
There's certain points where it does, but then like I mean, I think with Three Billboards, one of the things that struck me the most, and I think where it's most noticeable, is when her son calls her a cunt. And it just like everybody kind of looks at him and goes, "Whoa, yeah, yeah," but like I don't know that he realizes exactly how harsh of a word in American English that comes across as.
Yeah,
Like that it would be very like it would be a huge deal for a young American boy to come out with that
yeah,
word
yeah,
for his mother.
yeah,
Like let alone for his mother, but like ever. Like it's like that is one of it's one of those like weird ones where it's like we don't use it nearly as much and it doesn't have that punchy funny ring the way it
no.
does for Australian or
It's
Irish
it's yeah, and I think
accents.
he knows that there is a difference, but I think he underestimates just how harsh of a word it is here.
Yeah.
Like I don't think I'd ever call someone a cunt unless I was like really, really, really trying to lay into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I was like trying to be very, very, very derisive of a certain person. You know what I mean? Like, and it would be harsh. It's just a harsh word here, and I think he understands that there is a difference. But calling your mother a cunt the way he does in that movie and the way it's treated, it's not. It's it. He didn't quite nail that. I would say.
No, yeah, and like that's one of those moments where you kind of realize that he's good at it, right? He can still write for American accents fine. It's just that every now and then like the big moments that I think he wants them to hit in a different way,
Hmm.
they just don't because I think he underestimates the cultural attaché that it has, right?
Yeah.
Like there's something, yeah, that he's definitely at his strongest when he's writing for his own native accent, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And it's not a huge drop off, but it's noticeable. The
Yeah.
sort of expertise drop off that happens there. Topaz Duder says, "Remember when Carrie Condon and Banshees unironically lost the Oscar to Jamie Lee Curtis and Everything Everywhere All at Once?" Yeah, I do remember that. And that was a
Yeah, me
shame
too.
because Carrie Condon was excellent in that movie and Jamie Lee Curtis was fine in Everything Everywhere All at Once. So it goes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it goes. So now they're in the hotel room. The sun's going down. Ken has already told Ray that we're not going to sit in the pub and get pissed all night. So now we just wait here. And Ken is reading a book, enjoying himself. He's eating something while I don't know what it is. It's like yogurt or something. He's eating while he's reading a book. And and Ray is just absolutely miserable. He's just pouting and fidgeting, and there's this great moment where he's like, he's not gonna ring tonight, and that doesn't work, and so he's just like, ugh,
He tries again. He's not going to ring tonight.
Like, let's go out. Where? The pub? No.
No.
And then this is the bit that the actor brings to it, because this is not scripted. The long pause and him having the idea, and you can see him have the idea, and then you can see him put on the face to try to sell this as something he legitimately wants to do, where he's like, Colin Farrell's amazing in this movie. And he says, let's go out and look at some of the old medieval buildings and that, because I bet they look even better at night all lit up. And it's just and Ken gives him this look like, I know you're just saying that so we can get out of the house, but I'll take you up on it. And then when he
closes the book and thinks, yes!
Does a little fist pump. It's great. It's good stuff.
Which is another endearing character trait, right? That he gets so excited about this because he's just full of this chaotic energy.
Yeah.
That needs to escape, Yes.
He's bored out of his mind. And so then they're walking around town. We get some more beautiful shots of the city, and then they're walking around, and Ray has convinced Ken to let him continue drinking, so he's walking around with the beer in his hand, quite clearly drunk, and Ken's trying to tell him, it's see, this building was built in the 1100s or so and so, and he says the name of it, and it's some Flemish word, and he goes, oh, they all have funny names, don't they? Just his
reading every street sign in Belgium.
Yes, I love his attitude towards history versus Ken's. It's very funny. He's trying to explain, this used to be a hospital, all that sort of stuff, and he goes I always hated history, didn't you? It's all a bunch of stuff that's already happened. Oh my God, what's that? They're filming something. They're filming midgets.
Midgets.
And then he runs away. It's great. It's just laying into that dichotomy, because obviously I like history. I'm definitely more on Ken's side, but I love him being it's it's a bunch of stuff that's already happened. Who cares? Holy shit, they're filming midgets. And then he gets really excited and he runs off.
I mean, who wouldn't?
Yeah.
Who wouldn't, right?
Yeah, he has that sort of youthful, immature, in the moment kind of attitude towards everything. He has no ability to be patient or anything like that, really.
Yeah, it's a good thing Peter Dinklage wasn't as popular back when this movie was made, because I have a feeling he would have had something to say. If it was being made now, this would be a CGI dwarf.
Well, I just like that Martin McDonagh clearly likes dwarfs a lot, because
he really likes to include them in his movies. It's kind of
yeah. I mean, always accompanied by some jokes at their expense, but at least he's including them and giving them roles, right? But
yeah,
I love, for example, in Three Billboards, when Peter Dinklage, has his crush on God, what's her name?
Frances
McDormand. And he's holding the ladder for her, and then she rejects him because she doesn't want to date a dwarf. And he's like, I didn't have to hold the ladder for you. It's so good. Anyway, so there's a film being shot out on the street at night in Bruges, and that catches his attention because they're filming midgets. And he's like, Ray, come on, let's go. It's like, my arse, let's go. They're filming midgets. And then he sees a girl. He sees what we'll later learn is Chloe. He's like, look at that girl. She's gorgeous. Ken's like, hey, we're going right now. He's like, fuck off, we are. This is the best bit of Bruges so far. And so then he like kind of worms his way past security to the craft services table. He, like, gets a cup of coffee right when Chloe is getting something as well. And he's like, do you speak English? She says no. He's like, yes, you do. Everybody does. What are you filming midgets for? And she says it's a Dutch movie. It's a dream sequence. It's a pastiche of Nicholas so and so's Don't Look Now. Not a pastiche, but a homage is too strong. A nod of the head. And Ray's like, wow, your English is very
Wow,
good.
your English is very good. It's funny because he's like a little overwhelmed by everything that she's saying. He has no idea what she's
Yeah,
talking
well,
about.
and she, starts to immediately walk away because she's like, oh, you weren't actually listening to anything I was saying. So she just starts to walk away. And then I love this. In his like last ditch effort to save the conversation, he just blurts out, "A lot of midgets kill themselves." It's just, dude, he's like, "A lot of midgets tend to kill themselves." Yes, a disproportionate amount of midgets in comparison to normal people. And then he just starts listing off a bunch of famous dwarfs and midgets who have killed themselves. It's like, I guess they must get really sad about like being really little in that. It's so good. I just love that because that sort of like catches her attention again. Obviously, because it's a bold conversation.
It's a very bold, yeah. It's like out of left field kind of thing.
Yeah. People looking at them, laughing at them, calling them names, short arse. There's another famous midget I'm missing, but I can't remember. Nope, it's not the R2D2 man. He's still going. Nope, somebody else. And then
I hope your midget doesn't kill himself. Your dream sequence would be fucked.
Yeah. And then she kind of, that sort of makes her laugh, and that sort of helps him break through, right? He's like, he doesn't like being called a midget. He prefers dwarf. He's like, well, this is my exact point. People going around calling you a midget when you want to be called a dwarf. Of course you're going to blow your head off. And then so she kind of smiles, and she's, he's
again foreshadowing.
It is foreshadowing, because the dwarf does get his head blown off. He doesn't do it himself, but his head certainly does get blown clean off. My name's Ray. What's yours, Chloe? And she asks, how did you get past security? He says, getting past security, man, it's sort of my job. She's like, you're a shoplifter? Nope, not a shoplifter. Good joke though. No, I'll tell you what I am at dinner tomorrow night. He makes his move. He shoots his shot, as you should. And she laughs and walks away, and he thinks, oh, damn, that didn't work. And then she drops her card in a very sort of like cinematic movie way, drops her number, and then he goes and picks it up. And I like it when he picks it up. He's like, how fucking cool. Because he's like, damn, this is like a scene from a movie. Like, that's kind of how he's relating to it, So they have their little meet cute, which is fun. What I love about it in terms of having it be A, believable, but B, just sort of like not too cliche or like saccharine, is that like the way he wins her over is just by blurting out something very like impolite. Like, I heard a lot of midgets tend to kill themselves. Like, that's his opener. Like, that's his last ditch effort.
That's his hyperfixation.
Yeah. But that comes up later too. It's always good when
girls can tell that you're very passionate about something.
Yes. Oh, he's got hobbies. He's got interests. Maybe they're not the same as mine, but he's got things he can he can do in his own time, like research which midgets are still alive. Yes. And I just, but then he does make it funny too, in a way that like feels believable, especially when we learn who she is and what she's like, that she would laugh at his joke later. I think that's all quite believable. It's good character work. So, male counsel of Karen says he's nearly as good at talking to women as I am. Yeah, he's got some skills. You know what? I think what can we learn from this? Shoot your shot. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. If it seems like the conversation's floundering, like it might be all over for you, just blurt out something very un-PC that you're hyper fixated on. See what happens. Live life. Grab life by the balls.
You never you never know until you try.
Yes. And so what I quite like about that scene, so they have their little meet cute. She does the very dramatic movie thing where she walks away and she drops her card. She has a little flair for the dramatic, obviously. He's very excited. He says, "How fucking cool." And then, as a little comedic capstone to the scene, Ray's walking past the dwarf, who we don't know the name of yet, and he sees him sitting on the curb smoking a cigarette, and he walks past him, gives him two big thumbs up as he walks past. Like, hell yeah, dog. It's great. And he gets a little smile out of the dwarf. It's just like, okay, that was random. I just love that little bit. There's a little capstone to the scene.
Yeah.
Little gives him the big thumbs up, like I like when he's in it. What I like about Ray in this movie is that he is like a little kid in a lot of ways, which is, I think, thematically really interesting considering what
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
But he's very much kind of immature, but he has that sort of like emotional, like the emotional continuity of a 2-year old, where when things are going well, he's the happiest person you've ever seen. When things are going poorly, he wants to kill himself. Like, he's just
Yeah,
the
he
highs and
swings
lows.
wildly
He
from one
swings
way to the
wildly.
other.
Yeah. And so, so he just had a great meet cute. He shot his shot. And that's a weird phrase to say. But he made his move and it worked. And so now he's riding high. He's a little drunk. He got a girl's number. He just gave two big thumbs up to a midget. All his dreams are coming true, right? He's riding high and he's quite happy about it. So Ken, he comes back to the hotel, and there's a nice little bit of dialogue between him and the owner of the hotel, where she's like, "Mr. Blakely?" He says, "Yes." "No." "Mr. Cranham?" "No." "Yes." "Mr. Blakely?" "Yes." She just gives him this look like, "You have a message." Hands him the message. And so another great choice, I think, to have this be read aloud by Ralph Fiennes, by Harry, instead of just seeing it on screen or having Ken read it out loud, because hearing Harry's voice, so this is the first time we hear Harry's voice, right? We haven't seen him yet,
Yeah.
but the first time we hear Ralph Fiennes, he says, "Number one, why aren't you in when I fucking told you to be? And number two, why doesn't this hotel have phones with fucking voicemail on them and not I have to leave messages with the fucking receptionist? Number three, you better fucking be in tomorrow night when I fucking call you again, or else it'll be fucking hell to pay. I'm fucking telling you,
Fucking
Harry."
telling you, Harry.
Yes. And then, of course, later when the note is passed
Jesus.
to Ray, he reads it silently and he goes, "Jesus," he swears a lot, doesn't
Jeez, he swears a lot, doesn't he?
And I also love like the mental image of her like typing, because this is typed by the hotel, like she's typing this word for word as he's saying it. Like, you could also imagine him being like, "Now read that back to me." Like that sort of thing.
Yeah, you could. That does seem like the kind of shit he would be on. That's funny.
Yeah,
Oh
it's
my
great.
God. Yeah, and so he gets the message, and then he's in bed, and Ray comes in and turns the lights on, right? And
Turn the fucking
he's
lights
all
off. Yeah.
turn the fucking lights off. He's like, okay, sorry, but I've got to put my contact lenses in.
Well, first he's
Or
like,
take me contact lenses.
someone's in a mood.
Someone's in a mood.
he's so
He's
such
so snarky.
he's such a piece of shit. Like, he's like, I'm totally with Ken. He's so annoying. Like, especially later when they're in that like the church, like the chapel, and he's like kicking the chair around and making a ton of noise. And then when he's like, "Get over here," and he's like dragging his feet along, he's such.
Did we or did we not agree that if I let you go on your date tonight, that we would spend the day doing the things that I want to do? Yeah, yes, we did. It's like, and did we not agree that you would do them without acting like a schoolboy on a fucking throwing a fucking moody because he's dropped his sweets? Like, what? I didn't agree to that. I never agreed to that.
But yeah, he comes in and he's like, "Turn the fucking lights off." He's like, yeah. And there's so many great lines of dialogues. Like, and he's like, "Hey," he says, "someone's in a mood." And then he takes his shoes off and he says, "You'll never guess what." He says, "Can you shut your fucking mouth and please go to sleep?" He says, "Oh, sorry,
Okay.
except I gotta take my contact lenses out." And then he goes to the bathroom, turns the lights on again, and then the light like hits Ken in the face. And then he starts bragging about how much he's had to drink, and he's not even that drunk. Classic. He says, "You'll never guess what, Ken. Ken, you'll never guess what. What? I've got a date for tomorrow night." And he says, "I'm so happy for you."
I'm very
with a
happy for you.
with a
With
girl.
a girl.
He's like, "Can you turn the light off, please? Only been in Bruges one day. Got a date with a girl in the film business, the Belgian film business." And then I like this moment because you can tell he clearly like forgot that Ken saw that they're filming midgets. He goes, "They're doing a film about a midget." It's great.
Yeah, uh,
And
and
this is where. Oh no,
the
sorry.
flashback, right?
No. Sorry, not yes. Okay. This is what confused me. In the script, this is where the flashback comes, but it doesn't happen yet
Oh,
in the movie.
interesting.
So he comes in at night. He's bragging about getting a girl's number and talking about how they're filming midgets. It's the next morning. He gets the note from Harry and he goes, "Jesus, he swears a lot, doesn't he?" And and that's when, let me flash forward ahead. Let's see. Oh yeah. Okay. He says, "We're staying in tonight, whatever happens." And then Ray's like, except He says, except what? More of that repetition. Except only really one of us needs to stay in, really? He's like, and which of us would that be, Ray? I thought you didn't like Bruges. She says, "I don't like Bruges. It's a shithole. But I did already say I had a date with the Belgian lady in the Belgian film business, which I did already say about before." It's so good. The repetition, I love it so much. But I did already say I had a date with a Belgian lady in the Belgian film business, which I did already say about before.
I did already say about before.
And he says, "Well, just don't get into any fucking trouble. We're keeping a low profile. And this morning and this afternoon, we're doing whatever I want to do. Got it?" And this is like the one joke in the movie that Ray is trying to be funny, but it like doesn't land at all because it's like,
yeah.
And so he says like, of course, which I presume will involve culture. And Ken's like, we shall strike a balance between culture and fun. It says, "Somehow I believe, Ken, that the balance shall tip in the favor of culture, like a big, fat, fucking, retarded, fucking black girl on a seesaw opposite." And then there's a long pause, and he goes, "A dwarf."
It's so fucking funny because it's just like, I don't know where he's going with this. I was like, what? Okay.
Well, here's the interesting thing. There is more in the script that might
really?
explain where he goes with that. But in the movie, we stop there, and it's just like, that was a weird thing to say, right? Like he's trying to be funny, but it doesn't quite land. In the script, this is how it continues in the script. So he says, so right after he says opposite, a dwarf, he says, "I was down the park one day when I was little, and this big fat retarded black girl came up and beat the fucking shit out of me for absolutely no reason. Completely beat the shit out of me." And Ken says, "What does her being black have anything to do with it?" And Ray says, "Well, she was black." And then there's a pause, and he says, "She mightn't have been retarded. She might have just been one of those deaf and also dumb people. I'm not sure. Whatever she was a cunt. Completely beat the shit out of me." So that's where the scene was going in the original script. And he decided to just cut that bit, which is pretty funny.
That is funny. That's that. Okay, so like I guess I get why he does that, because that doesn't really add why he cuts that, because it doesn't add very much moving forward. It is funny dialogue, though.
I like the bit like, "What does her being black have to do with anything?" It's like, well, she was.
She was. She mightn't have been retarded though.
Yeah, like it is funny. Like they're like some of the deleted scenes as well. I don't think that's in the deleted scenes on like the Blu-ray and stuff, but some of the deleted scenes are like kind of amusing. There is a scene in the deleted scenes where Harry's on the train to Bruges, and he has a sort of funny interaction with someone on the train, but it's not necessary at all. It's just like, you could cut that, and I'm glad he did, because like we said before, this movie is very slim. It's lean in a way that's quite strong. So
it's only like an hour and 47 minutes, right?
It is. Yeah,
it's not long at all.
Hour 47, presumably with credits. Yeah, it's not very long. It's great. It moves along at a good pace. So now that they're gonna do whatever Ken wants to do, they go to a church. And Ken, like we mentioned before,
Ray throws a moody. He shuffles his feet around. This is the church of the Church of the Holy Blood, right? It's where
Yes,
that like
yes.
there's he gives him the fun little history lesson where he's just like some knights from the Crusaders or from the Crusades, some knights from the Crusaders came back and they brought a vial of Jesus' blood, and it's said that
Certain moments in
it turns
history.
back to liquid
Yeah,
at moments of great stress. He's struggling for the word,
yeah.
right? And he says, so I'm gonna get in the queue and go up and put my hand in the box and touch it because that's what you do. It's like, oh. It's like, you gonna come with me? He's like, do I have to?
That's
He
no,
goes,
you don't
do you
have
have
to.
to?
Of course,
No,
you
you
don't
don't
fucking
fucking
have to.
have to.
It's only
It's
Jesus
Jesus
Christ's
fucking blood,
fucking
isn't
blood.
it?
Yeah. Of course, you don't fucking have to.
Of course you don't fucking have to. He gets, he
Gets
doesn't
really mad.
understand. Ray doesn't understand why he's so upset.
Yeah. Yes. And so then he goes to wait outside. He sits on a bench. He sees the little dwarf walking by. He waves to him, all happy and excited, like, but the dwarf doesn't wave back. And he goes, like,
It just
fucking
looks
cunt.
right through him,
Yeah.
basically, as he's walking. Little fucking,
And then here's a
little
little
fucking
detail
dwarf.
that, like, doesn't actually go anywhere or anything, but it's just a little idiosyncratic detail that I like, where he's sitting next to a guy holding a really kind of ugly dog on his lap, and the ugly dog like turns to look at Ray and then looks away, and like I that detail is so funny to me. Like it's I don't know, something about the dog looking at him like, oh, what a sorry sap, and then looking away again is very
Yeah.
funny. And then, which I think this is a much better transition into the flashback than is written in the script, he sees a couple with two kids, they're like holding the kids' hands as they
Yes.
walk, and they're jumping along and having a good
Yes.
time, laughing like children do. And then it cuts to the flashback. Much stronger than in the shooting script that I found online, where it just happens after um, I think the scene at night where they get into the argument, right? So now we get to the flashback scene, and this scene is so good, dude.
It's very good. Yeah,
Yes,
it's very good. The blocking I've noticed is a little bit off in the final execution.
we'll talk about it.
Over many times of watching this, yeah. I
Yes,
think there's arguments to be made for why. But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. He wants to sort of present it in a very cinematic way. So he's in a confessional. Ray is with the priest, and the priest like, take your time, son. He says, so he says, and it's Ray, Father, Raymond. He says, and what is it you've done, Raymond? He says, murder, Father. He says, murder. Why did you murder someone, Raymond? He said, for money, Father. For money. You murdered someone for money. He said, yes, Father. Not out of anger, not out of nothing, for money. And who did you murder for money, Raymond? And then he clears his throat and says, you, Father. He's like, I'm sorry. I said, you, Father. What are you, deaf? He says, Harry Waters says hello. And then he shoots him like through the wall of the confessional. He shoots him a couple times. He kind of gets up from the confessional, and then he's kind of stumbling away. He kind of pushes through an open door into the next room. Ray shoots him a few times, and then the great editing here on the last final shot he takes, there's a quick like 3-frame long flash of close up of Ray's face. So like we're seeing it. Ray is behind the priest and he's shooting. Bang, bang, bang. The last bang. There's a brief, like I'm talking like the pop up frames in like Fight Club level short of Ray's face on that final bang, which is a really, really strong choice in my opinion. And then the priest falls, and then a look of horror comes across Ray's face. And then the camera slowly reveals there is a child kneeling in front of a little sanctuary where there's a bunch of candles lit and all that sort of stuff. And he has a piece of paper in his hand, and the bullet is meant to have gone clearly through the front of his forehead and out the back. But the way he's
yes.
he's facing straight ahead towards the altar. And is
Yeah,
that the blocking?
for the shot.
Is
The
that
shot is, yeah, that's the blocking that I mean, is that the shot, like the bullet is supposed to have gone through the priest and gone through the front of the kid's head and out the back.
yes?
But the way the priest falls, it should have carried through the side.
Yeah, and so
Um,
like you have to believe that like it went through the priest and the front of kid's head when he turned to look, obviously when the priest came through the door, but then somehow he turned his head back. It's a little
yeah, it's
it's
a little, yeah,
It's
It's
a
a
little
little bit of
much.
a little much to say. I think like the main reason why they do the blocking that way is probably just because it's a better shot.
Yeah,
You know, like I
but
think
also the
it
bullet.
feels very much like something out of convenience to get something that looks better. You could make the argument that he is misremembering it, you know, like because it's just a very traumatic thing, you know,
Mm,
that it's just, like
yeah,
it's not
it's
really
the
the
only
point.
flashback we get, and
Yeah,
so
it's the only flashback.
and it also like the whole thing does have a sort of cinematic quality and blocking to it that other things feel a bit more loose and organic. So maybe that's kind of how he
Maybe.
pictured it
That's
in his head. But
that's the best way I
I,
think
I
you can
think
go
a
with it
simple
because
fix would just be that the bullet goes, in one side of the head, out the other side instead of front to back.
yeah, or just like rearrange the pews if you can, if you can. Like
Yeah,
they, I mean, probably couldn't. I think they shot this on site. You know, they got a church
yeah. I
for it.
think, yeah, if it's just like it can come out you know, the side of the head, and that would work just fine. He's looking ahead. Anyway, that's like an awkward bit of blocking that it is. I did notice it like the first time. I notice it every time I watch it, but it's not a huge deal
I
to
always
me.
forget about it until I watch it again,
Yeah.
and then I'm like, oh yeah, that's yeah,
It's just a
yeah.
little that's not how I would have blocked it. But otherwise still a very effective scene. Obviously, he's there to kill the priest, accidentally kills a young boy for being reckless about it. And then he finds the boy, he's slumped over on the ground, and he pulls out of his hand a piece of paper, and on the piece of paper are three items that read being moody, being bad at maths, and being sad, which is just such a fucking gut punch. It's
Yeah.
what I love about that is how sad it is, but also it's kind of funny in a dark way. Like that's the note he had, like that's the sins he was atoning for,
Yeah,
that
he
he
went to confession to absolve himself of is
of
being sad and being moody
yeah. And it's like,
and
oh,
bad
that
at maths.
that poor kid. And also like what's funny about it is that like piling on top of the weight that like of killing this kid on accident, he has to read this note that's just so heartbreaking, and it's funny only
Yeah.
in insofar as like Jesus Christ, it's the perfect little cherry on the sundae of how fucked up this whole thing is. It's great. And then we go straight from this. So Ken runs in and grabs him. He's like, "Come on, we got to go." And then they run out. And so now we finally know why they're here, why they're hiding out. The job that went wrong. He was meant to kill a priest, presumably because he was a bad priest. We don't know why. We never really find out why. But he had obviously,
Something he did something that pissed Harry off. You know,
at the
that's
very
that's
least, at the very least,
yeah.
there's the implication later from Ken, who we reasonably think is like a relatively moral person, aside from the fact that he kills people for money. We'll have that conversation in a minute, but that like most of the people he's killed are not very nice people, as he puts it. So like you get the feeling that a lot of the people that they're hired to kill are terrible, that they're villains, that they're criminals and things like that. The only other person that's specified that they've killed intentionally is the guy that killed Ken's wife. And so if like you assume many of the people that they're hired to kill might just be people who crossed Harry, in a business way, and he's been ruthless about it. Like you can absolutely believe that, but you can also believe a lot of people that they kill are terrible people and criminals and stuff like that. And this is sort of like extrajudicious law enforcement, you know.
Yeah.
So like but we never really get. It's never clear what the priest did or whether he really deserved it. But narratively, Ken was no, not Ken. Ray was willing to kill the priest and felt fine with killing the priest. So one assumes that he felt justified in doing so in some way. But then when he kills the kid on accident, that just completely destroys him. So then we cut straight from the flashback, which is another great choice because we hang on this overhead shot of the priest bleeding out and the kid next to him. This great, perfectly overhead shot. And we very slowly dissolve from that to paintings in a museum, like it's very dark, hellish, religious
The Hieronymus
paintings.
Bosch
Yeah,
paintings,
that's the
yeah.
one we land on. And there's a fun little bit where they're in the museum, and like one of the first things, Well, there's a great little visual moment where he's looking at one of the paintings of a guy being skinned alive. and Colin Farrell has this great moment where he looks at it and kind of looks down with like a ugh, and then he looks back again as he walks out of frame. It reminds me a little bit of the bit in Hot Fuzz where there's like those two like police officers that look like that are brothers, and they like sort of walk out of frame and kind of poke their heads back in. Like it just has that same sort of visual sense to it. And so then
It does, yeah.
then they come upon the Hieronymus Bosch painting, and let's see.
He says the rest of these are
I quite
rubbish
like
by
this one.
spastics, but this one's I quite like this.
Yeah, exactly. He says, "What's it all about then?" And Ken's like, "Well, it's the last judgment day, you know." He's like, "The final day on Earth when mankind will be judged for all the crimes they've committed in that." He's like, "Oh, and see who gets into heaven and hell and all that." He's like, "What's the other place?" He says, "Purgatory." He's like, "Purgatory. Purgatory's kind of like the in-betweeny one. You weren't really shit, but you weren't all that great either. Like Tottenham," which is a funny line. "Do you believe in all that stuff, Ken?" He's like, "Tottenham?" It's like the last judgment and the afterlife and guilt and sins and hell and all that. And he's like, "Oh, and then we cut
Because
out.
he realizes what's happening here,
He's
like
like,
what he's
"Uh-oh."
asking him.
And then they're outside sitting on a bench and they're continuing the conversation, which is a nice little detail. I like that. And he's like, "I don't know, Ray. I don't know what I believe. I was brought up believing certain things. I was brought up Catholic." Oh, okay, that's actually not in the final movie. He says, "The things you were taught as a child, they never really leave you, do they? So I believe in trying to leave a good life. Like if there's an old lady carrying her shopping home, well, I don't try and help her carry her shopping. I don't go that far. but I'll
Hold the door for her.
I'll certainly hold the door open for her and that and let her go out before me." It's like, yeah, and anyway, if you tried to help her carry her shopping, she'd probably think you're just trying to nick her shopping. That's so great. He's like, "I try to be a good person. Like, if there's an old lady with her shopping, well, I don't help her with her shopping. Obviously, I don't go that far." It's such a great. These are very much like, I like this sort of like everyman hitman sort of thing. It's great.
Yeah, the hitman with a heart of gold,
or like not even a heart of gold, like a heart of like bronze.
A heart of like a heart of tarnished bronze, a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
Exactly. The Andes, yes, the Andes.
They're just normal men.
They're just normal men.
They're just normal men.
Yeah.
Just innocent men.
Yeah. And this is where we get a little bit of how Ken feels about what he does for a living. He says, "At the same time, is trying to live a good life. I have to reconcile that with the fact that, yes, I have killed people. Not many people, and most of them were not very nice people, apart from one person." And so obviously Ray's going to be interested in that. He says, "Who was that?" He says, "This fella, Danny Alaban's brother. He's just trying to protect his brother like you or I would, but he was just a lollipop man. But he came at me with a bottle, and what are you going to do? I shot him down." And Ray's like, yeah, Ray is very quick to try and justify it, right? He's like, "Oh, yeah, in my book, though, someone comes at you with a bottle. I'm sorry, that's a deadly weapon. He's got to take the consequences." Another great little bit of foreshadowing. He's like, "I know that in my heart, but I also know he's just trying to protect his brother, He's like, "I know, but a bottle, that can kill you. It's a case of if it's you or him. If he come at you with his bare hands, that'd be different. That would have been fair." He says, "But technically someone's bare hands, they can kill you too. They can be deadly weapons too. What if you knew karate, say?"
I thought you said he was a fucking lollipop man.
He was a
lollipop man. Well, what's a fucking lollipop man doing knowing fucking karate?
It's like, I'm just saying, how old was he? About 50. What's a 50-year-old lollipop man doing knowing fucking karate? What, was he a Chinese lollipop man? So just in terms of the dialogue here, it's already funny enough, like, what's a lollipop man doing knowing fucking karate? You could have capped it there, but he finds a way to take it up another level with the, like, how old was he? About 50. And so it's like, oh, now he can add that on top too. What's a 50-year-old lollipop man doing knowing fucking karate? There's another great moment later where Harry's talking to Ken in the square where they're having a beer. Where there's another great moment where he's like, "Oh, this just gets fucking worse." It's like, he was in the park. What does that have to do with fucking anything? Like, like adding in these little details to just make the dialogue more.
We were down in the park.
What's that got to do with fucking anything? Yeah. And so
Let me get this right.
Let me get this wrong. Yeah. And so he's getting all worked up, right? And then he says, like, "Jesus, Ken, I'm trying to talk about," and I love, in terms of Brendan Gleeson's performance here, the pause he takes is very long. Just like he has this
Yeah.
knowing look on his face. It's a long pause, and he finally says, "I know what you're trying to talk about." And then Ken just breaks down totally. Or sorry, Ray just breaks down totally. I keep messing up their names. Ray breaks down totally. He says, "I killed a little boy. You keep bringing up lollipop men." And Colin Farrell, just in terms of his performance, his range in this movie, like when he breaks down in tears here, he's like shaking, like in a way that it's
Yeah.
very natural, very believable, but he's shaking like pretty
The
intensely.
emotion is incredible that
Yeah.
he's like, yeah, he can. This is, like I said, this is the movie that really sold me on Colin Farrell's acting ability
Yeah.
when he's into it, you know?
Yeah.
It's like I think for a while in those like late 90s, early 2000s, he was kind of on cruise control with some of the
Yeah.
Hollywood movies.
Yeah.
But like he comes into this one and the next thing I know, I'm like, oh no, this guy has got it, you know?
Yeah. And I
I
think
see why it.
one of the things I like about a movie like this, a comedy like this, with these dramatic scenes in it, is like, not every like some like broad American comedies like don't have any sort of emotional depth like this, and that's fine. Not every movie does, but I'm trying to imagine like a Will Ferrell like Judd Apatow comedy from the 2000s where any actor has to emote anything close to this. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there's some
I don't think you can name one.
no,
Yeah.
and that's why I like this movie so much because a they get to deliver lines in a very very funny way. He gets to do a lot of fun stuff with his eyebrows and physically, and they get to say things that are very funny. But also like we really go to the height of drama too, and we nail that. And so like when they're saying really funny things like what's a fucking 50-year-old lollipop man doing knowing fucking karate? What was he, a Chinese lollipop man? Like but he's so earnest about it because behind that is the like is what he says immediately after. He's like, "Ken, I'm trying to talk about," and he's like, "I know what you're trying to talk about." Like that's the like he's the frustration he has when he reads that line about lollipop men. It's like it's so motivated by how upset he is and what this is building to and what he really wants to talk about, but he is having a hard time talking about. And that's why I think at the beginning having Ken not say it, so early like it was in the original script, he just says like, "Well, it's like of course he'd fucking bring that up." But he doesn't bring it up because he doesn't want to say it. And like the same thing here,
Yeah.
he knows what he's trying to talk about, but he's been very hesitant to bring it up or actually say it because he knows how heavily it's weighing on him. We'll find out later when he tries to send him on his way that like his advice and his strategy for bearing this weight is to just keep moving.
Keep moving. Yeah.
Right. And so that's kind of how he's been approaching it here as well. I mean, obviously they're trapped here. There's nowhere they can go, but it's like, don't talk about it. Try not to think about it. Keep moving. Like that's clearly how he handles the worst things that have happened to him, some of which we'll hear about later. And so I think it was a really strong choice for that character reason as well, to wait until later in the movie to reveal why they're here, what went wrong, and all that. It's great.
Yeah.
And
I think
so
it's a very, very strong choice.
he says, so, this is when he reveals I killed a little boy. He's like, "You didn't mean to kill a little boy." He says, "I know I didn't mean to, but because of the choices I made and the course that I put into action, a little boy isn't here anymore and he'll never be here again." And then he pauses and he goes, "I mean here in the world, not here in Belgium." Which is just
Yeah.
he's like taking every opportunity. Like I don't know of a movie, I can't think of any movie honestly that at this level just ping pongs back and forth so quickly between things that are very sad and very funny at the same time.
Yeah,
Like,
well, and it feels so believable,
yeah,
right? Because like this is how he copes with his awkwardness at, um at expressing emotion with comedy,
yeah,
right? Like with these kinds of jokes. And so he's just hit his lowest moment and he rebounds, but like, yeah, because he's trying to save his own, save face for himself, I think, and appear, a little stronger than he really is by making a joke again.
yeah,
And and the other thing that I really love about this scene, right, is that like a lesser movie probably would have just cut at the scene where he starts crying, right?
yeah,
But we get to feel the aftermath of this as well. So
yeah,
he starts crying, and then he has to sort of like recover from it a little bit, and move on, right? And it's sort of like thematically,
Yeah, well,
it's
this is
thematically sort of
well,
going with that idea,
yeah, but we
right?
also have to establish not just that he's feeling the overwhelming weight of all this, but that he wants to kill himself. Because so
Yes.
he says like, well, he'll never be here in Belgium either, will he? He might have wanted to go when he got older. I don't know why. And he says, but that's all because of me. He's dead because of me, and trying to get my head around it, but I can't. I will always have killed that little boy, and that ain't ever gonna go away ever until maybe I go away. Right. So and
Yeah.
that's really important because if we think about the overall arc of his character, like, he'll talk about it at the end. He'll talk about one of the best jokes in the movie is like, maybe that's what hell fucking is, an eternity spent in fucking Bruges. Like, but he's in purgatory, essentially.
Yes.
Narratively speaking, like, he's in purgatory here. He's stuck here and he can't return home. He can't move on until he deals with this, right? He has to go through all the purgation and everything. So, like, he but like he wants to kill himself, and and he wants to die, and he feels like he has to die, and then Ken is here. I mean, like, the central joke of the movie is like what's in the thumbnail of the video is him with a gun to his head while Ken is pointing a gun at him at the same time. And like that's the movie in one image, right? And so, like, in terms of his arc, like, he's done something horrible that he feels cannot be redeemed, and he feels he deserves to die for it. And then by the end, he realizes that, like, you know what, I just need to, I need to keep on living. I'm going to go find the victim's family and see what they decide, whatever fate they think I deserve, and accept that fate no matter what they say. And at the end, we'll save it, but, like, I think it's the perfect resolution to the question here, right? Like, where if nothing else, he doesn't want to die anymore, right?
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't
Exactly.
want to kill himself anymore. And so the the idea that, like, he wants to kill himself, and then Ken has to kill him but doesn't want to do it, and then so he ends up saving him. It's so good. It's such a funny and sad premise at the same time. It's really, really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
Council of Karens is mentioning it's a very Catholic movie in a good way. Yeah. I
yeah,
mean, it has
it's a very Irish
it has
Catholic
all of
movie.
that. Very Irish Catholic,
Yeah.
with the humor, and all that, enough to make it so that it doesn't feel like, an overtly Catholic movie, but it is, and it has those themes, and it uses them to a very strong effect, you know?
Mm-hmm. So, so
So,
okay, then later that night he's preparing to go on his date. It's just a nice little character moment where, like, he's like trying
he's,
to
he's
he's still really
yeah, he's
depressed
deciding how many buttons to
to button. He's like
button
pushing
up on
his
his shirt.
face around while he's looking at himself in the mirror in kind of a fun way. And then, but, like, you can tell he's just very depressed. Like, he's trying to psych himself up to go on this date, and he's like, well, whatever. Like, it's not going to matter anyway. But then he goes out on the date anyway. Then he's out on the date with Chloe, and there's a great little bit of dialogue where he says what he does for a living. He's like, I shoot people for money. And he's like, what kinds of people? Priests, children, things like that. He's like, is there a lot of money to be made in that? He's like, there isn't priests, there isn't in children. Anyway, what do you do for work? And then she says that she sells drugs to people in the Belgian film business. So she's
Yes.
a drug dealer on set. And she's like, do I look like I do that? And he says, you do, actually, which is a great little
Do I
response.
look like I shoot people? She goes, just children.
And he's like, and then he takes a huge sip of wine. It's great.
It's such a like a biting joke.
Yeah.
It's
Uh,
so hard 'cause, like, you can tell she doesn't like
she has no
she's
idea.
no idea. She's just like, and it's a funny joke, right?
Oh,
Like,
it's a
it
great joke.
works
Yeah, like if
in any other circumstance.
yes, exactly. I saw your midget today. The little prick didn't even say hello. He says, well, he's on a lot of ketamine. What's that? He says, horse tranquilizer. It's like, yeah, a horse tranquilizer? Where'd he get that? I sold it to him. You can't sell horse tranquilizers to a midget. And then we
Oh
get
my
into like
goodness.
him shitting on Bruges or whatever. We'll skip this bit. It is pretty funny though, like the joke he makes about Belgian. Like he's like, oh, I do know a Belgian joke, and then she gets offended. She plays a little joke on him, pretending that like one of the people involved in the in
Child
in
murders.
the child murders.
What's Belgium famous for? Chocolates and child molesters, and they only invented the chocolates to get to the kids.
Yeah, and then she's like, one of those kids was my friend, and he's like, oh fuck, I'm so sorry. And she's like, haha, just kidding, gotcha. I just wanted to make you feel bad. Then she leaves. She leaves to go powder her nose, metaphorically.
Well, yeah, probably.
Yeah, exactly. And then we get into an argument with the neighboring table where there's a couple who we assume at first are American. We'll later learn that they're Canadian. Where he's like, it's unfucking believable. He's like, what's
Unfucking believable. What's unfucking believable? You talking to me?
like, are you talking to me? He's like, he pauses, even though he should just hit the cunt, and he repeats, yes, I am talking to you. What's fucking unbelievable? Well, I'll tell you what's fucking unbelievable, shall I? Blowing cigarette smoke straight into myself and my girlfriend's face. That's fucking unbelievable. But this is the smoking section. I don't care if it's the smoking section. That's a really fun detail that he's throwing a hissy fit about it, even though they're sat in the smoking section. That's great. He says, "I don't want to die
back
just
when they had those.
I don't want to die just because of your arrogance." He's like, isn't that what they what the Vietnamese used to say? So it's still not clear at all to me why he says that.
Oh, because he thinks he's American.
Well, yeah,
And
I know he thinks he's American, but like he brings up the Vietnamese several times in the movie. It's another one of his hyperfixations. It's midgets and the Vietnam War, I
and
guess.
the Vietnamese.
But
Yeah, the
like,
Vietnam War.
I don't want to die because of your fucking arrogance. Oh, is that okay? So I guess the joke.
Isn't that what the Vietnamese? Yeah, because he thinks he's American, so he's blaming him for the Vietnam War
That's
by saying like
such a weird thing to
America
bring up.
shouldn't have got involved in the Vietnam War. The Vietnamese
Okay.
didn't want to die for your arrogance.
Okay, I get it.
Like,
It just
yeah.
it's still random as fuck, and that's why I was.
It is very well, and yeah, it is, and that's
That-
like even if I was like even if the guy was American, rightfully he would be confused about it. Probably just like what the fuck does that have to do with
The
anything?
Vietnamese, when you're talking about the Vietnamese, the statement makes no fucking sense. Yes, it does. The Vietnamese. I love that he just doesn't explain himself. Saying it over and over again ain't gonna make any more sense out of it. How does the Vietnamese have any relevance whatsoever? Blah blah blah. And then he punches him in the face. And he says, "That's for John Lennon, Yankee fucking cunt." And then the girlfriend pulls out a bottle. He's like, "A bottle."
A bottle?
No, don't bother. And he punches her in the face. And then Chloe comes back. Everyone's staring at him. They're like passed out on the floor. He says, "We're leaving." That's great. That's such a
No,
great.
I'd never hit a woman, Chloe. I'd hit a woman who was coming at me with a bottle.
That's different. That's self-defense, isn't it? Or a woman who could do karate. So the karate comes back. The bottle comes back. The karate's gonna come back again. But it's just every little joke, he finds a little way of incorporating it again. It's great. I'd never hit a woman generally, Chloe. He's like, "God, you're pretty." He's like, "I have to make a call. You've gone off me now. Whatever." And then
Just because I hit that fucking cow, and then she kisses him, and is like, yeah, well, we're gonna go. Yeah, I'm gonna go make a call, and then we get the phone call scene, which is the one take.
Yes,
the
it's
one take of the century, perhaps. It's
so this is probably it's hard to pick, but this is probably my favorite scene in the movie. And I think it is maybe one of the best like long one takes I've ever seen. I think part of why I like it so much is that it doesn't draw a lot of attention to itself as a oneer. The movie is not full of long takes. There are scenes that play out in two shots for like a majority of the conversation, usually rather static frames though. The movie is generally speaking, traditional coverage for a lot of scenes, right? There's a variety, like I said, there are two shots and stuff like that. There are scenes that play out in the wide, but like it's pretty standard shot reverse shot coverage. But then this scene is just a phone call of Ken and Harry, and so I think it just makes intuitive sense because there isn't a reverse shot to cut to. He could cut to Harry, but I think the movie is very smart to wait to finally reveal Harry for a big moment later. So like we've been introducing Harry's influence just like by them talking about him. Then we get the note and we learn that he's very angry and that he swears a lot. and then we finally get to hear his voice. Well, no, we heard his voice in the note, but this is when we finally get to have a conversation with him. And like I said, I think this is the best scene in the movie. I think it really is emblematic of how well the movie rides the line between
Yeah.
comedy and not just drama, but like tension and is like a crime thriller. This is probably like the best example of that. I at the risk of just reading through the entire movie, I do want to go through this scene in full. We don't have to do that for every scene in the rest of the movie. We might be here a little long, but I love this shot playing out all in one take. I think
Yeah.
it's beautiful. Like I said, I'm quite fond of long takes that don't draw attention to themselves. You just kind of feel like trapped in a moment like this, and the camera just kind of moves around effortlessly. It's not doing any like, whoa, look at me cinematography. Those kind of shots have their place, of course, but I think this is really effective. I don't think a lot of people, even who've seen the movie, necessarily remember this as like a really effective oneer, but it's got to be at least 3 minutes long. Like, it's a long shot. It's great. So he's
Yeah.
channel surfing, and what's on the TV, Hugh, but Rope by Alfred Hitchcock, a movie that was famously shot in a bunch of really long takes stitched together. So that's a fun little detail. It's kind of a little tiny, tiny bit of foreshadowing of how this scene's going to play out. So he gets a call. He answers the phone. He says, so where the fuck were you yesterday? He's like, oh, we just popped out for some dinner, Harry. We only popped out half an hour. Yeah, and what'd you have? For dinner? Yeah, Pizza Hut. He's like, was it nice? Yeah, it was all right. It was Pizza Hut. It was the same
Pizza
as in
Hut.
England. He's like, yeah, well, that's globalization, isn't it? Is Ray there with you? It's like, yeah, he's in the toilet. Can he hear? No. What's he doing? What do you mean? Is he doing a wee or a poo? it's, so, it's so good. And especially the way Ray Fiennes says it. I'm not familiar with the names of these accents, but Harry's accent in particular is very fun. Like I
Yes.
couldn't name which English accent it is, but it's very specific and I like it. It's like, is he doing a wee or a poo? It's like, I don't know, Harry. The door is closed. It's like, send him out on an errand for half an hour, but don't make it sound suspicious. So he kind of puts the phone down. He walks over to the empty bathroom. He's like, Ray, why don't you go out to the pub for half an hour? Yeah, I know you said you couldn't, but we might as well enjoy ourselves, eh? No, I don't know if they've got bowling anywhere. You could have a look, huh? Yeah, see ya. And then he like kind of pantomimes walking over to the door, opens it, kind of like nods his head back and forth and closes it. I love every little detail there. It's so fun. He's like, he's gone. He's like, what'd you say to him? And the repetition, right? Like forcing him to repeat what he probably just heard, you know? It's like,
Yeah.
I said, why don't you go have a drink? Save being cooped up. He's like, yeah, what did he say? He said, yeah, he would. He might have a go look and see if there's a bowling alley around. Was he just having a wee? It's like, yeah, I think so. I assume so. So he didn't
I think
mind.
so. I assume so.
No, he was glad to get out. Is he definitely gone? Yeah, yeah, he slammed the door. That doesn't mean he's gone. Go check outside the door. And so Ken rolls his eyes and he kind of like puts the phone down. This time he walks over, he opens it. He's got that like going through the motions physicality there. He closes the door, comes back. He's like, yeah, he's definitely gone. It's like, you realize there are no bowling alleys in Bruges. It's like, I realized that, Harry. The boy wanted to have a look anyway. What are they going to have, a fucking medieval bowling alley? It's like, as I say, I think he was just glad to get out and about. It's like, is he having a nice time seeing all the canals and that? I had a lovely time when I was there. All the canals and the old buildings and that. I love that like everyone talks about them that way. Like the old buildings and that is a phrase that like
Yeah.
everyone uses throughout the movie. He's like, when were you here? It's like, when I was 7. Last happy holiday I fucking had. Which is great. I love these little character details about Harry. Like, like part of the way. So, like, first of all, he's very, like, irritable, angry person who just seems like he's unhappy all the time, which is great. But I also
Yeah.
like that the way he sort of exerts power over people is, like, forcing them to repeat themselves and, like, answer questions. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, is he having a wee or a poo? And he's like, so was he having a wee then? He's like, I don't know, Harry. It's like, go check outside the door, like, forcing them to do stuff, forcing them to do redundant things, forcing them to repeat themselves. It's kind of like his way of expressing power over people.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
exactly. I like, and the fact that like I mean it's very much like a meticulous. attention to detail kind of thing that you would expect from somebody in this position,
Yeah.
right? Like he's suspicious, but I also love the characterization that like he's clinging to this like he is a world-class cunt, but
Yeah.
he's clinging to this happy memory that he had when he was a child, right? And that
When he
to
was
him that
7
we're going to find
too.
out.
Really quick, when he was 7 as well, which is about the age of the kid that was killed, which I think is a nice touch.
Yeah.
Continue.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say like I think that it's a really nice touch that like his he does think that he's doing something nice for him
Mm-hmm.
because this is like the last happy memory that he had. And of
Yeah.
course, that's how he would relate to this. Is like, if I wanted to die, I wish I could. Okay, he's like, I'd like to see Bruges one more time before I die,
Yeah.
which again, more foreshadowing.
It's like, have you been on a canal trip? Yeah. Have you been down all the cobbled streets and that? Yeah. It's like a fairy tale, isn't it, that place? Yeah, with all the churches and that. It's like, so he's having a really nice time. It's like, well, I'm having a really nice time. I'm not really sure it's his cup of tea. And there's like a really long, dramatic pause. And I just love his little, what? It's like, I'm not sure if it's really his thing. And then the anger comes out because, and the anger, like you said, for the reasons you just said, like his character has been clinging on to this as like the last happy memory he's had in a long time. Like this is, his happy place essentially. And he's like, "What do you mean
Yeah,
it's not really his thing? What's that supposed to mean? It's not really his thing. What the fuck is that
it's not
supposed to
his
mean?"
fucking thing. The fuck is that supposed to mean? How could all
It's
fairy
a fairy
tale
tale
place?
fucking town, isn't it? How can a fairy tale town not be someone's fucking thing? How can all those canals and bridges and cobbled streets and those churches and all that beautiful fucking fairy tale stuff, how can that not be someone's fucking thing? It's so good. It's like, what I meant to say was, yeah.
He interrupts him there too and keeps ranting
It's
about
like, is the
like
swans still there? Yeah, the swans. How can the fucking swans not be someone's fucking thing? How can that be? It's like, what I meant to say was when he first arrived, he wasn't quite sure about it. There's that big dual carriageway when you get off the train. That might have been there when you were last here, Harry. But as soon as he got to like the old town proper and saw the canals and the bridges and the swans and that, well, he just fucking loved it then. He couldn't get enough of it. The medieval part of town. It was just that initial dual carriageway thing sort of put him off for a second. He says, I don't remember a dual carriageway. That must be recent. It hasn't spoiled it, has it? Like, no, it's just that initial thing. When you're walking through the streets, there was this kind of freezing fog hanging over everything, and it made it look almost like a fairy tale or something. He turned to me, and you know what he said? What did he say? He said, Ken, I know I'm awake, but I feel like I'm in a dream. It's like, yeah, he said that. Yeah. Meaning like in a good dream. Like, yeah, of course, like in a good dream. Ah, good. I'm glad he likes it there. I'm glad we were able to give him something good and happy, because he wasn't a bad kid, was he? And for obvious reasons, the music comes in there. The whole thing has been playing out in relative silence. Then the sort of tense music starts to creep in. As it says here in the script, Ken's heart sinks. He hopes he isn't hearing what he's hearing, which is a great little way of writing
that's
that
a
in the
yeah.
script. He says, huh? He said, he wasn't a bad kid, was he? Listen, take down this address. Ramstraat 17. That's Ram, like Ram, but with an extra A. It's like Ramstraat 17. You got that? And he says, yes, Ramstraat 17. More of the repetition. He says, good. There'll be a man there tomorrow at 9. His name's Yuri. Yuri, he'll give you the gun. Ring me. He'll give you the
Yep.
gun. Ring me on the public phone at Jimmy Driscoll's about 3 or 4 tomorrow after it's done. He said, after what's done? And there's another long pause. He said, are you being thick? and Ken says no, because he knows what he's talking about. But he just like it said earlier, he hopes he isn't hearing what he's hearing. He really doesn't want this to be. He wants to be hearing him wrong. He's like, are you being thick? He's like, listen, I liked Ray. He was a good bloke, but when it all comes down to it, he blew the head off a little fucking kid. And you brought him in, Ken, so if the buck doesn't stop with him, where does it stop? And there's a long pause, and he goes, Ken, if the buck doesn't stop with him, where does it stop? It stops with me, Harry. That's an easy one. He's like, now don't get shirty, Ken. It's so great. He said, listen, I'm just glad I was able to do something for the boy before he went. It's like, do what for the boy? It's like, have him get to see Bruges. I hope to get to see Bruges again before I die. What was he said again? It's like a dream. And then I love that choice, right? From a writing perspective. So Ken has realized that he has to kill, Ray. And he doesn't want to do it. Obviously, he's like heartbroken at the idea of having to kill him. But he's still got to, keep up appearances during this conversation. He's got to agree to do it. it can't seem like there's any hesitation. And then to add a little insult to injury, that lie he made up about how he actually really liked it here, just he was just trying to, calm Harry down. So he made up a lie that Ray actually did like it, like the line about like I know I'm awake, but I feel like I'm in a dream. And the idea that, from a writer's point of view, the idea that you would have him repeat that again here at this moment with the new context is such a like gut punch.
Yeah.
It's so good. He's like, tell me what he said again. It's like a dream. And then Ken has to repeat that lie again, but he has to, it's so good. He says, I know I'm awake, but I feel like I'm in a dream. He's like, yeah, give me a call when he's dead, and hangs up. Fucking
Yeah. Oh my God. The dial tone at
yes.
the end of that too.
Yes.
Ah,
It's
Ray Fiennes isn't even on screen for this, and
no, and
the
he's
way that
so
he's
good.
delivering these lines is so
It's
good.
so good. This is like one of my favorite scenes in anything. I just think this is like an
Yeah.
absolute masterclass in writing and filmmaking because, first of all, I love a good phone conversation like where you only see one side of it. I just think, like you can always cut back and forth between two sides of a phone conversation. There's obviously, times where that's useful, but the choice to have it just hang on Ken the whole time and we never cut, and most of it plays out in silence until the heart sinks and the music comes in
Yep.
to really elevate the heart sinking, right? And every little bit of that back and forth with the comical repetition, the like, make forcing him to take all these unnecessary steps, like the lying, first of all, that he's even there, right? So because he
Yeah.
lied and pretended he was there, he has to go through all these motions of like getting him out, which is kind of funny and redundant and whatever. And he's kind of, but then when he finally gets, and he has to, he first tries to tell him that Ray doesn't like it here, and he's like, "Oh, that was a mistake." Harry's very upset about that. Has to make up a lie about actually how he loves it. Then realizes that, oh, this was all supposed to be for Ray. The irony of that, of course, is not lost on him. And then he finds out that he has to kill him. And I love the way Harry goes about it there, because he's like, "Oh, well, he wasn't a bad kid, was he? Anyway, take this address down." And he just moves right past it, and Ken's like, "Oh fuck, oh fuck." And he's like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "Are you being thick? Like, come on." I love that. Like, if the buck doesn't stop with, if the buck doesn't stop with him, who does it stop with? Doesn't get an answer, and then says the same question again. Like the way
Yeah.
he talks, I love characters like this. It reminds me a little bit of the cowboy in Mulholland Drive. Where he
Yeah,
like
yeah, that like sort of asserting his authority to be like, no, you're not gonna get out of this by staying silent. You have to
yes,
answer my
you have
question.
to answer my
Yeah,
question. Or like, because when the cowboy talks to him, he's like, now did you actually agree with what I said, or are you just telling me what I wanted to hear? He's like, I agree with what you said. He's like, oh yeah, well, what did I say? Like, he
yeah,
really forces him, and then once he does repeat it, he's like, well, then if you agree with what I say, then why aren't you acting like it, essentially? And like, I love characters with that energy. I love like Mr. Wolf in Pulp Fiction, like the way they sort of assert their authority and dominance over the conversation by like not letting anything be rhetorical like that. It's like,
yeah,
like forcing people to say explicitly what's happening, and like forcing them to come out to answer your question like that. It's great.
exactly.
It's just, it's an impeccable scene. It really
It
is.
really, yeah.
I wouldn't,
I mean, like in every element, like it again, very impressive from a first-time director
yeah.
to know when to put this stuff in, how to use it to its full effectiveness. Like it's sort of just like as if he's just got the talent for it, right? Like
Hmm.
these are the kind of things that sometimes it takes people, years to figure out,
Yeah.
right? And he just manages, like, even if it's like in the shooting script, maybe not, as tight as it is, he just managed to find like exactly where to put each scene and how to set them up. To especially in this one, where to put the music, where
Hmm.
not to cut, like
Yeah.
he could have easily done this in like multiple takes, but he decided to do it in the one long one because it brings you right along on the ride with Ken as he's sort of transitioning from thinking this is just sort of like a hideout and maybe there's, something deeper to it, to what he's realizing the deeper purpose of the trip is.
Yes. Not
It's
just not just
masterful.
not just that he has to kill Ray, but the irony of the fact that they're only here because this was supposed to be a nice thing for Ray, and and Ray hates it. Like adding
Yeah,
extra insult
exactly.
to injury, the sort of irony of that is quite funny. Yeah, and just little details, right, that I quite love in this movie. I've mentioned the repetition several times, but one of the ways that manifests here is like in a lot of movies when there's like a phone call or someone's like taking down a number or taking down an address, or like, they just get it, instantly. It's said once and no one ever asks to repeat it or something like that, or to confirm that they heard it, like read that back to me kind of thing. But like, listen, take down this address. He says the address. He's like, that's like Ram with an extra A. And then he has to repeat it to him. So he says, Ramstrat 17. He says, you got that? He says, yes, Ramstrat 17. But it just, that feels a lot more natural too, because like, sometimes you'll watch a movie, some police procedural detective sort of thing, and it's like jot down, like he's like, he gives someone an address and he just says it once and then it's gone. And I always feel like if it were me, I'd be like, wait, hold on, can you say that again? Or like, I need to write that down or something. But and so like, you get the repetition, which he clearly likes, because it's a way of also lengthening tension, repetition in that way, because this is after it's clear what's happening here. It's starting to become clear what's happening here. And so you can really stretch out the tension by like having people repeat things unnecessarily, or like to make absolutely sure that every consideration has been made. It's like, like David Fincher is really good at that. David Fincher is really good at like taking a tense scene and using like editing or dialogue to like draw it out as long as you possibly can. And I feel like that the dialogue is doing a really good job in this back half. Like, when Harry's just talking about like, oh, how much he loved Bruges when he was a kid, after it's been revealed that has to kill him. It's just like, you don't want to listen to it, but it makes you sit in that moment for even longer. Anyway,
Yeah.
it's great. Anyway, we can move on from the scene now. I just love it so much. I think that's something like the halfway point in the movie. It's a super pivotal scene. So then we go to he's getting it on with Chloe, and then someone comes up and pulls a gun on him and says, "Give me all your money," whatever. And he manages to push him away because he's not really afraid of the guy with the gun. And then Chloe's like, the gun's full of blanks, and he steals it off of
Well,
him.
he ends up getting the gun from
Yes.
him.
Yeah, he
Yeah, he
wrestles the
gets
gun.
and the guy pulls the knife out, right?
Yes.
And Chloe's very confused as to why this guy is here,
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "That's my fucking girlfriend." He's got,
You
Belgian
think it's
accent.
okay to come over to Belgium and fuck another man's girl? Say, look, I didn't know she had a boyfriend. All right, and I hadn't fucked her anyway. Ask her. I'd only put my hand on it. It's like, put the gun down or whatever. It's like, don't, it's like, get on your knees and open your mouth. It's like, oh, don't start being silly. He's like, get on your knees and open your mouth. And then he headbutts him and steals the gun from him. It's like, exactly at what point was it that all skinheads suddenly became puffs? It used to be if you were a skinhead, you just went around beating up Pakistani 12-year-olds. And now it seems a prerequisite to be a fucking bum boy.
He's adding insult to injury, just like his first reaction is to just call him gay.
Yeah. He pulls out the knife. He says, "That's not going to help you, mate." Is like this, and then Chloe tells him there's only blanks in that gun, and so it's like, oh, he's got a knife and you've got a gun with only blanks in it. He shoots to
He's like,
confirm they're
oh,
only
and when
blanks.
he shoots, yeah, he shoots and it doesn't do anything. And the guy goes, "Now who's the fucking bum boy? Is you
Fucking
fucking
bum boy, and fires it directly into his face, and then he screams. He's clutching his eyes, freaking out, and then
I can't see."
go ahead.
Yeah, of course you can't see. I just shot a fucking blank in your eye.
And he's like, "Chloe, what exactly is going on here?" While the guy's like writhing and screaming in pain on the ground, and she's like, "We rob tourists sometimes." And he's like, "I fucking knew it was too good to be true," and all that sort of stuff. And Chloe's like, "Why'd you come tonight?" And he's like, "I can't see, I can't see." And then another one of my favorite lines in the movie is like, "Oh, stop whinging like a big gay baby." I use that one a lot in my everyday life. It's quite a good one. It's a great line. He's like, and I haven't had a shag in months. And then Chloe offers to drive him to the hospital. And he's like, oh, great. Now the whole night's ruined. He's like, you could say if you
No, I'll
want.
be back. I just don't know how long.
Yeah. And then
You
so
can
we
stay
get
if you want.
I knew someone like you would never like me. I just knew. It's like, what do you mean? And she's like, someone nice. And she like gives him a kiss, like, call me please. And then she leaves with him. Then he, now that he's alone in her apartment, he's just sort of like dicking around. And then he finds a bunch of drugs. Coke and ecstasy and LSD, I believe.
Some an ecstasy and all that.
And all that. He grabs a bunch of stuff. Ken's in the bar now, in the pub, and he's had 4 beers in 20 minutes.
4 beers in 20 minutes, no problem.
He's like, fuck off. So he's drinking his sorrows away. The dwarf comes. We find out
the midget comes in. No, the dwarf. Sorry, the dwarf comes in.
He comes out. We find out that his name is Jimmy. He says, Ken says, how's the movie going? He's like, it's a jumped up Euro trash piece of rip off fucking bullshit. And Ken goes, oh, like in a bad way. Oh, it's so good. There's so many good lines. That's one that like I forgot about until I watched it again last night. I was like, damn, that's a great line. And then he sees the prostitute that came in when they says, your girlfriend's very pretty. And she's like, she ain't my girlfriend. She's a prostitute I just picked up. It's like, oh, I didn't know there were any prostitutes in Bruges. It's like, yeah, you just have to look in the right places. Brothels are good. So, well, you've picked up a very pretty prostitute. He says, you from the States? He's like, yeah, but don't hold it against me. He's like, I'll try not to. Just don't say anything too loud or crass. And then Ray comes in. He comes stumbling in, talking a mile a minute because he's all hopped up on coke. He's like, hey ho, drowning your sorrows, huh? He's like, what sorrows? It's like, being a sad, old, ugly little man. It's so good.
One gay beer, please.
Yeah, I love that we were talking before the stream started. I like this line because it says, one gay beer, please. And then the bartender brings him a beer. Like, if you're the bartender, like, what do you hear when he says that? Like, what kind of beer does that mean? Is that a thing I'm missing? Like, if you go to a bartender in Bruges and say, one gay beer, please, will he know what you're talking about?
I can tell you from experience, they did not.
That's a shame. Yeah. It's so good. There's so many great lines. I just fucking adore this.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say just real quick, the city of Bruges really does not do enough to encourage tourism based on this movie. And I understand why to some degree,
because
right?
The movie insults Bruges so often.
Probably, but there are a lot of people who go there for the movie, and it's like it. One of the things, like when you go to the clock tower, there's like a survey from the city that asks you to fill out, like, oh, why did you choose Bruges for your Christmas vacation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And nowhere on that list is the movie, right? Like the movie that you made here.
Well, the guidebook says it's a must-see. That should be an option.
The guidebook says it's a must-see.
If they're being cheeky and they listed options why you came to visit Bruges, and it's like the clock tower, semicolon, the guidebook says it's
clock
a must-see.
Parentheses, guidebook says it's a must-see.
Yeah.
The swans and all that. How can that not be someone's fucking thing?
Yeah. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
That's what
nothing
I would
like that. They do not seem to encourage cinematic tourism in this town. And it's a bit of a shame because I think you could have a lot of fun with it if you decided to.
Yeah. Zoray comes bursting into the conversation all high on coke, gives a brief summary of his night up until this point. Mentions that he has 3 grams of coke on him. Ken is excited about that prospect. So you got 3 grams of coke. He says, "I've got 2 grams on me and 1 gram in me, which is why my heart is going like the clappers." Which is why my heart is going like the clappers, as if I'm about to have a heart attack. So if I collapse any minute now, please remember to tell the doctors that it might have something to do with the coke. And so he says, "Give us a gram then." He's like, "I thought you were laying off this because it makes you too depressed." He's like, "You know what? I really don't give a fuck anymore." And so Ken leaves to go to snort some coke in the bathroom. Ray walks
Ray grabs his beer and sees.
It's just in terms of his acting performance, it's so funny. He sees Jimmy, the dwarf. He sees him, and then he gets this look on his face, like, "There you are, you little fucker!" He grabs his drink. He walks over there, and the way he tries to get his attention while he's making out with his prostitute, just by jabbing him with 2 fingers behind his ear is just the funniest way you could possibly do that. Like, it just jabs at him. It's so funny. And so he finally gets his attention. And then another one of my favorite lines, he goes, "Why didn't you wave hello to me today when I waved hello to you today?" Well, I was on a very strong horse.
Strong horse tranquilizer.
I wasn't waving
I wasn't
hello to
waving
anyone.
hello to anyone except maybe to a horse.
Huh? What are you talking about? Just horse
Just horse
shit.
shit.
Yep. Are you from America? Yep, but don't hold that against me. So, well, that's for me to decide, isn't it? So, like, that comes back again. That's not just a little one-off joke we had before. That's gonna, that reoccurs, which is great. He's talking to the prostitute. She's like, "Amsterdam's just a load of bloody prostitutes, isn't it?" And she says, "Yes, that's why I came to Bruges. I thought I might get a better price for my pussy here." And he's like,
There's another tourism campaign they could run.
he says, "Huh? You two are weird. Would you like some would you like some
Would you like some cocaine?"
Yes.
And Brendan Gleeson just materializes over his shoulder.
Yeah, and they're both making really funny faces. It's great. It's so good. Now we're in some, hotel room or something like that. We're doing coke. We're partying with prostitutes. Ray's he's clearly racing a mile a minute because he's on coke. He's talking to Jimmy, the dwarf, about all the dwarfs who've killed themselves. He starts naming all the ones that killed them. He's like, "Would you ever think about it?" She was like, "Huh? Did you ever think about killing yourself because you're a midget?" He's like, "Fuck, man, what kind of question is that?" He's like, "We're just chatting, aren't we?" And then he steps away from him.
It's even funnier given where Jimmy is going to go with the conversation.
Yes.
Uh,
They briefly mentioned, Ken lies and says that Harry still hasn't called. He's like, "Well, no news is good news, And then later, Jimmy, now this is deep into the night, and the conversation has taken a turn. Jimmy, he started talking about there's going to be a war, man. I can see it. There's going to be a war between the blacks and between the whites. You ain't even going to need a uniform no more." Fuck, I can't talk. "You ain't even going to need a uniform no more. This ain't going to be a war where you pick your side, man. Your side's already picked for you." It's like, "Well, I know whose side I'm fighting on. I'm fighting with the blacks." Whites are going to get their heads kicked in. It's like, "You don't decide this shit, man. Your side's already picked for you." And then, of course, Ray is encouraging this because he's a weirdo himself. He's like, "Oh, yeah? Who are the half-castes going to fight for?" He's like, "With the blacks, man. That's obvious." It's like, "What about the Pakistanis?" He says, "The blacks." "What about..." He's like, "Oh, shit. Let me think of one. What about the Vietnamese?" He's like, "The blacks." He's like, "Well, I'm definitely fighting with the blacks if they got the Vietnamese." So hang on, would all the white midgets in the world be fighting against all the black midgets in the world? He's like, "That'd make a good film."
They make a good film.
Like, you don't know how much shit I've got off of black
I've had
midgets.
to take off of black midgets. That's undeniably true.
That's such a great joke. You don't know how much shit I've had to take off of black midgets, man. And that's undeniably true. I don't. And this is where we talked about it already. This is when Ken enters the conversation. He reveals that his wife was black and she was murdered by a white man. So where is he supposed to stand in all this blood and carnage? We find out that Harry is the one that got the guy who did it, and one infers just from that tiny little bit of backstory that that's how Ken ended up here. That's how Ken ended up indebted to this mob boss type figure of Harry Waters, because he helped him deal with the guy who presumably got away with it legally and had to be taken out by Harry. Which is a great little bit of character writing, a great little bit of backstory woven into an otherwise absurd conversation. I like that. And then, so it's like, "So tell me, Jim, whose side do I fight on in this glorious war?" And Jimmy just goes, "I think you need to weigh up all your options and let your conscience decide." Which is such a funny answer.
Such a funny, backtrack.
Backpedaling, yeah. There's 2 manky hookers and a racist dwarf. I think I'm headed home. So they start to head out. The party's over. And then Jimmy tries to grab some more drugs. And Ken says, "Back off, shorty." He slaps his hand away. He says, "You don't know karate."
You don't know karate.
He chops him in the
Karate
neck.
chops him right in the neck.
He falls to the ground in pain. Oh, it's so good. So he paid off karate as well, something no one in their right mind would have ever assumed needed to be paid off. But we got some karate in the movie. Hell yeah. Got a nice.
No lesser writer would have done it, but
Yep.
there you go. Martin
Karate chopping
McDonough,
midgets in the neck.
Karate's like that's exactly the kind of payoff that we needed.
Yes. Yes. And he calls him a short ass as he's leaving, which is pretty funny.
Short ass.
So
And paying off the conversation that he had with Chloe earlier is just like, oh, midgets killed themselves because everybody's always calling them short ass and things.
yep. Yep.
Oh my God.
Wasserman says, I can only imagine how obnoxious Hugh was there, constantly quoting the movie at people. Bruce is a shithole.
Just at the two Belgians that were showing us around.
Yes.
They were not as familiar with it. Surprisingly less obnoxious than the Belgians who were showing us around. Someday maybe that story can get told.
It is the next morning, and Ken gets up early. He's going to go visit Yuri to pick up a gun, but we linger on Ray in the early hours of the morning. He's lying in bed, and he is crying. He's very upset.
Yeah,
and
the music that's playing in this scene is just phenomenal. It's that classical piece. Yeah, as he's walking through the streets.
What I love, it's just he's at a real low point at this point, and I think it's just a great little bit of writing that this is like, because he talked about being on coke and ecstasy and all sorts of other stuff at night, and if you know anything about those drugs, you know that like the come down from them is just fucking brutal, because they like release, between them they release basically like all the dopamine and serotonin you have in you, and so like you're riding high, you're confident, you're feeling like you just the best you've ever felt. But like, I've never done coke, but I have done ecstasy before, and only once, because the next morning was the most depressed I'd ever been in my fucking life, because like all the serotonin is just like used up all at once when you're high, and then the next morning you just don't have any in your system, and so you feel like the absolute worst the next day. I don't recommend it. And that's why I would never do it again for that exact reason. But I just love like the detail of that. So like after this party, the next morning, like he's like really depressed, and pretty soon he's gonna try to go to the park and shoot himself. So like every little detail matters. Every little detail makes sense and is like pushing the plot along. It just like this would be the moment out of all the moments we've had so far where he like finally decides that he just can't bear it anymore. I just think that really works. That really makes sense.
Logically it follows. Yeah, and we get the scene with Yuri and the alcoves in the Königlich Aswick Park.
You use this word, alcoves? Yes. And he's like, and then so he puts the silencer on the pistol, and Yuri's like, "You are gonna do it, aren't you?" He's like, "Of course I'm gonna fucking do it." And so we get a little bit of the like, is he gonna go through with it? Next, we're in the park, and Ray is sitting in the park, and Ken is like looking at him from the distance, and he finally works up the courage to do it, and he's walking over, and the music is rising and rising, and right as he's about to put the gun to his head, Ken pulls out a gun and puts it to his head as well, and that's where we get that like really funny shot from the thumbnail. Kind of symbolizes the whole movie in a nutshell. And like, even though he's there to kill him, he sees Ray about to kill himself, and he stops him from doing it, and he's like, "Ray, don't." And that scares the shit out of him. Obviously, he gets up. He's like, "What are you doing here?" And he's like, "Nothing." And you see him like put the gun.
Hides the gun. Hides the gun.
It's like, "Oh my god, back. You were gonna kill me." He's like, "No, I wasn't."
No, you were gonna kill yourself. Well, I'm allowed to. I'm allowed to. No, you're not. I'm not allowed to, and you are. How's that fucking fair?
It's great.
They're sitting on a jungle gym together, talking about
Sorry, the one thing we skipped over, but it's just a nice little detail, is like first he finds him in the park because he returns to the hotel, and
There's a letter, yeah.
and
Oh
she's
no, he
no, she's
finds the
like,
letter
hey,
afterward.
your friend was behaving very strangely. He tried to give me all like he tried to give me 200 euros for the baby. I got the feeling that was all the money he had. Will you give it back to him? I tried to refuse, but he was very insistent. Will you give the money back to him? And that's what clues him in to the like, huh? Like he said, he
Hmm.
went to the park, kind of thing. Like, oh, something's wrong. Like maybe he's trying to kill himself, and that's when he finds him at the park.
Yeah.
It's good.
And
So
then they sit down on the jungle gym together.
and I love that, like behind them, we get these up shots of them while they're talking, and there's like a little bunny rabbit, and so, like it's a very childish setting, but it's just very like thematically on point that it happens here
Yeah.
too. You know what I mean? And they have a little conversation about it.
It makes sense that this is where he would choose to go. And it makes sense that this is where they would have the conversation, and it's like it just works very well with the
Mm-hmm.
theme of the story. Just very tight script. He is
I
like,
wasn't
"What
gonna
kind
go
of gun
through
do you
with it,
have?"
Ray. Well, you fucking looked like
Nice.
you were gonna go through with it.
Let me see the gun. Oh, silencer too. Nice.
It's
Mine's a
nice.
bloody girl's gun.
What a great day this.
Yeah.
Oh, and then he takes the gun from him and he puts it in his pocket. He says, "You're not getting your gun back." He's like, "Oh, a great day this has turned out to be. I'm suicidal. My mate tries to kill me. My gun gets nicked, and we're still in fucking Bruges." He says he's gonna
The
give him some
emotional
money to put him
breakdown.
on a train somewhere. He's like, "No, you can't go back
Well,
to
he has an
England."
emotional breakdown here that rivals that. Like, I mean, like again, maybe the best Colin Farrell has ever been.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that like he's had a lot of great roles,
Yeah.
but when he has this breakdown here, is like, yeah, I want to be a dead man.
Mm-hmm. Have you been missing something? Like, Ken, I killed a little boy.
Yeah.
And then Ken says, "Well, then save the next little boy. Just go away somewhere. Get out of this business. Try to do something good. You're not going to help anybody dead. You're not going to bring that boy back, but you might save the next one." And I love that his response to "you might save the next one" is like, "What am I going to be, a doctor? You need
You need
exams.
exams.
Like, do anything, Ray. Do anything. Just keep moving and don't ever go home." It's great. It's great.
Yeah.
I like that that's his answer, you know, and it's like, listen, you know, you can't undo what you did, but you can do good things in the future. You can redeem yourself or whatever. And eventually he'll sort of conclude that like he needs to face justice for it. So he's going to go to the family and, you know, just take whatever punishment they feel he deserves. You know, I like that's sort of his resolution, that like if I survive tonight, that's what I'm going to do. It's such a great resolution to that. So, so he's realized Ken has realized that Ray's trying to kill himself. He doesn't want him to, and he's also learned that that Harry wants him killed as a result, unsurprisingly.
Hmm.
And so
When he puts him on the train, sends him on his
first
way.
there's a funny little bit where he says, "Harry Waters wants me dead. What a wanker." He said this whole trip, this whole being in Bruges thing was just to give you one last joyful memory before you died. He's like, "In Bruges?" It's like the Bahamas, maybe? Like, and then he goes, "I suppose it's cheaper." And we just hang on Colin Farrell's face, realizing like, oh shit, you're right. Then he puts him on the train.
Puts him on the train, tells him to, just keep moving, you
Yeah.
know. He says, just tell Harry will be mad with you, but
So I'll
just
deal
tell him
with Harry.
I'll deal with Harry. Just tell him I'll probably have offed myself in a fortnight anyway.
He says, "You won't, will you?" And he kind of shrugs as the doors close and he walks away, right?
Yep,
And then he
makes the
calls
call to
Harry.
Harry.
Says, "I know, like, you know what that is?" And then there's a pause and you don't hear Harry this time. He says, "I know you know it's a train, but do you know what train?" "Well, it's a train that Ray's just got on, and he's alive and he's well, and he doesn't know where he's going, and neither do I. So if you need to do your worst, do your worst. You've got the address of the hotel. I'll be here waiting, because I'm getting to quite like Bruges now. It's like a fucking fairy tale or something." And he hangs up. And then we
The
finally
cut
cut.
from
Yes.
from the phone being hung up to the phone in Rafe Fiennes' hands the first
Yes.
time we see Harry
Ugh.
is so good,
It's
man.
brilliant. It's like this is when we finally see him, right? And it happens right when he finally gets told off and things aren't going like how he wants them to. When he's like finally lost control of the situation, we cut to him and then we cut out to the wide and you're not sure what he's going to do. And then he just starts absolutely obliterating his phone in anger. Oh, it's so fucking funny. It's like, smashing it over and over again. We cut out to the living room, and his
His
wife.
kids are and his the nanny and his
Yeah,
wife around a Christmas tree.
yeah. And then they come over
Like,
and they're like, Harry, what are you doing?
it's an inanimate fucking object. You're an inanimate fucking object. He just throws it.
And then she walks out of the room.
Oh
And
my
then,
god.
and even better that you're an inanimate fucking object, she leaves. And then instantly we cut to him like getting down on his kid's level. And he's like, he's like, Daddy's got to go away on a trip.
Yeah.
It's so funny. And there's another really great little line in here where he's like, now you be good for, your mother and for Yashimoto or whatever the name of their like Japanese nanny is. It's something like that. And then he's like, I gotta go away. She's like, where are you going? He's like, I gotta go to Bruges. She goes, where's that? It's in Belgium. I love that.
Why would anybody need to go to Belgium?
It's like, gotta handle some
It's
business.
a matter of honor. It's just like, you're bringing the fellas, aren't you?
It's like, well, it's like, it's not going to be dangerous, is it? He's like, well, of course it's going to be dangerous if it's a matter of fucking honor. It's like, please tell me you're going to bring the fellas. Please tell me you're going to bring the fellas. And he goes, I'm sorry I called you an inanimate object. I was upset.
I didn't mean it.
I was upset. Cut to Ken, and he's like putting on his tie, preparing for Harry to come and get him. That's such a great little
You
scene.
find the letter too that Ray left that says like I didn't want her to have to clean it up.
Yep, that's a nice little touch. It's a nice little touch. He's on the train.
Puts Ray's gun in the drawer before he leaves.
That's important. Yes. And so he's on the train. The train stops. He's like, why isn't the train moving? Then the police are looking. They come to him and he's like, you hit the Canadian? He's like, what? You hit the Canadian? He points, and then he goes, there's that motherfucker. There he
That's
is.
the motherfucker.
You hit the Canadian. Like, I don't know why that's so funny to me as like a twist. Like, obviously, it's funny that it comes back to bite him, right? And as a way of bringing him back to Bruges, because they arrest him, and then as
he's trapped. He's eternally trapped in Bruges. He can't get out.
He can't escape. He can't escape until he maybe resolves the central conflict of the story, right? He's like trapped in purgatory, right? And so, but the idea that like actually it wasn't an American, it was a Canadian, like that's such a funny like nothing burger of a twist or a reveal, but it just makes me laugh because he like had so many American specific gripes and epithets that he used against him, and he turned out to be a Canadian. It's just I don't know, it's very funny. Like he blamed him for John Lennon.
We're taking you back to Bruges. Brilliant.
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 It's great.
Yep.
So like,
and then
so Harry really quick, just as a funny detail, because it's an amusing line, but even though it's not in the movie, the deleted scene of Harry on the train and some businessman is across to him and he goes, off to Belgium on business? He says, if I'd wanted a conversation with a cunt, I've gone to the fucking have a conversation with a cunt shop. So it's just like, okay, I'm glad we cut that. Doesn't really add anything. But like I can imagine that be amusing.
But doesn't add much.
Yeah, exactly. So everyone's converging on Bruges because
because we are entering the final act of the film.
So Harry, as you might expect, goes to pick up a gun from Yuri, and there's a bunch of guns laid out on the table. And he's like looking them over, and he sees an Uzi. He's like, a fucking Uzi.
I'm not from South Central fucking Los Angeles. I didn't come here to kill 12 black teenagers in a drive-by. I want a normal gun for a normal person.
And Yuri's like, I knew he wouldn't kill the guy. I could see it in his eyes when I was telling him about the alcoves. About the what? The alcoves in the Cunning and Astrid Park. And then he gives him the dum-dums. Use this word, dum-dums? The bullets that make the head explode? Yeah, dum-dums. Would you like some of these dum-dums? And I like there's a sort of casualness to his response that kind of sounds like how you might phrase something like, "Oh, I know I shouldn't eat these fries, but I'm going to." He's like,
I literally do this I say this in my daily life more often than I like when I'm just like, like if I want to have another drink, I'm like, no, I shouldn't,
"But I
but I
will."
will.
And so then Eric is like, "Motherfucker." And he's like, "Is he talking to me?" He's like, "No, Eric's on your side, Mr. Waters. Your young friend blinded him last night." He's like, "Ray did. I was trying to rob him and he took my gun from me and the gun was full of blanks and he shot a blank into my eye and now I cannot see from this eye ever again, the doctors say." It's like, "Well, to be honest, it sounds like it was all your fault." I mean, basically, if you're robbing a man and you're only carrying blanks and you allow your gun to be taken off you and you allow yourself to be shot in the eye with a blank, which I assume the person has to get quite close to you, then yeah, really, it's all your fault for being such a poof. So why don't you stop
So stop
whinging?
whinging. Cheer the fuck up.
It's so good. I love
I love that he like we also skipped over the part where like he walks in and sees him sitting on the sofa and he just goes aye.
Yeah. Like Harry has a
I,
sense of humor. He's a cunt about it, but like he especially loves getting to just like say really rude things to people. Like you know what I mean, cuz he's
yeah.
accumulated enough power and confidence and security that he kind of gets off at yelling at people and making fun of people and telling people off. It's great. It's such a great choice for him as a villain.
Well, it's fun. It's funnily like similar to how Ray behaves, right? Like that's how he is with the Americans, when he's calling them fat, and then
Yeah.
you use a bunch of fucking elephants. So it's tying the two of them together a bit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It's like because he wasn't a
So
bad
yeah,
kid. And I like that as a
yeah,
choice too. That he kind of liked Ray. He thought he was all right. He thought he was a good kid, but he made a mistake. And you got to stick to your principles. It's a matter of honor.
it's a matter of honor.
Yeah, yeah. He's got his moral code, as warped as it may be. He's very strict about it, and I like that choice as well.
Yeah, well, we're about to find out exactly how strict too.
and because Harry and Ray actually do have a decent bit in common, he also calls him gay. He's like, "I thought you wanted the guy dead." He says, "I do want the guy dead. I want him fucking crucified." It doesn't change the fact that he stitched you up like a blind little gay boy, does it? Oh, it's so good.
Like the other, like I want him crucified too. We're like really hammering home the theme.
Oh, sure.
The Catholic themes
Sure.
there, beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, but yeah, calls him gay as well.
Yeah. And
Uh,
so, yes, and then we're getting to probably the next one of the other great scenes in the movie when Ray and no, not Ray. Fuck, I keep doing that.
Ken,
Ken and
Ken and
Harry sit down in public in broad view of everybody in the square at a little table outside a pub or something. And so he sits down and he's like, "Well, the boy's suicidal, Harry. He's a walking dead man. He keeps going on about hell and purgatory." He's like, "When I phoned you yesterday, did I ask you, Ken, will you do me a favor and become Ray's psychiatrist, please? No. What I think I asked you was, could you fucking blow his head off for me? He's suicidal. I'm suicidal. You're suicidal. Everybody's suicidal. We don't all keep going on about it. Has he killed himself yet? No. So he's not fucking suicidal, is he?" He is like one of my favorite characters in anything ever. He's so funny. He's like, he put a loaded gun to his head this morning. I stopped him. This gets fucking worse.
it's fucking worse.
We were down in the park. Let me get this right. And then he pauses to like register what he just said. He's like, "You were down in the park. What's that got to do with fucking anything? Let me get this right. Now, let me get this wrong. Not only have you refused to kill this boy, you've even stopped the boy from killing himself, which would have solved my problem, which should have solved your problem, in which it sounds like would have solved the boy's problem." And his objection to that is quite good. He says it wouldn't have solved his problem, And this is when we're getting to like the real meat of their, difference here. He's like, "Ken, if I'd killed a little kid, accidentally or otherwise, I wouldn't have thought twice. I'd have killed myself on the fucking spot. On the fucking spot. I'd have stuck the gun in my mouth on the fucking spot." More repetition. It's great stuff. And obviously, that's obvious foreshadowing.
Yeah,
It's great.
yep.
I mean, it's not. I guess
to your principles.
I shouldn't say it's obvious like when you're watching it for the first time that's going to happen. I think that twist is actually something of an unexpected one if you're not,
Yeah,
if
if
you
you don't
don't.
know it's coming.
Exactly. But so it's not obvious in that way, but it's, in hindsight, it's obvious foreshadowing. He's like, but that's you, Harry. The boy has the capacity to change. The boy has the capacity to do something decent with his life. Which is such an insult. I love
Excuse
it.
me, Ken. I have the capacity to change. You have the capacity to become an even bigger cunt.
No, he says you have the capacity to get fucking worse.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, and he's like, all right, now we're getting down to it. And it's just so much of this dialogue. I love reading through it because it's incredible. It's just,
How much of it made it to the final cut? Yeah,
yeah,
it's
word for word. Like, Harry, let's face it, and I'm not being funny, and I mean no disrespect, but you're a cunt. You're a cunt now, and you've always been a cunt, and the only thing that's going to change is you're going to become an even bigger cunt. Maybe have some more cunt kids.
Oh my God, the reaction that he has with that too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
leave my fucking kids out of it. What have they done? And then
You retract that bit about my cunt fucking kids.
I
I
retract.
retract that bit about your cunt fucking kids. We get my kids into it. That's going overboard.
I retracted it. I like. He's like, I retracted it, didn't I? Like just moments ago, dude. Like he's still upset about it.
Yeah.
Like obviously he's still upset about it. But it's just, I love that so much where he just says word for word. You retract that bit about my cunt fucking kids. I retract that bit about your cunt fucking kids. It's perfect. It's perfect. It's poetic. It's kind of lyrical. It's bouncy and musical. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that still leaves
Very
you being
Irish.
that still leaves you being a cunt. Yeah, I fucking got that. It's so funny. It's so good. He tells him he's, and then there's a nice bit of dramatic irony. He says, right about now, Ray's in one of the other of a million towns in mainland Europe it's possible to be in other than here. But of course, that's not true because he's back in Bruges because he's in hell and he can't leave. So he's getting bailed out
And
by Chloe.
we see him getting bailed out by Chloe.
There's a little joke about how he says, I'll get your drugs back to you. And she's like,
I'll get all your
he's
acid and
kidding.
your ecstasy back to you. He says it right in front of the English humor.
Mm-hmm.
Insulting. They are Irish.
Yes. So, then they're
Well, they decide they decide when they're going to do the shootout. It's like,
yes,
how are we going to handle this?
yeah,
We're going to have a shootout right here in front of a bunch of
Belgians,
Belgians,
not to mention all the
not to
other
mention all the
peoples.
other nationalities, just on their holidays.
And so they decide they're going to go up to. Well, they also briefly mention here. They talk about Yuri being a funny fellow. They talk about the alcoves. They have a little laugh. They have that brief, moment of I remember why we liked each other in the first place. And then they have to get back to business. They decide to go up to the clock tower. They can settle it there. And, he said, well, I'm not going to have a shootout. Yeah. And then he says, when he says, not to mention all the other nationalities just on their holidays, Ken goes, to see all the swans and Gothic and all the fairy tale stuff, huh? It's like, are you trying to fucking wind me up? He's like, no, Harry. Yeah, it's just great. Because Ken actually does like it here, which is quite funny.
Yeah.
And so they go up to the bell tower. It'll be quiet up there. No one's going to bother them. And then Jimmy, the dwarf, comes up to Chloe and Ray. In this original script, there is quite a longer conversation that Ray and Chloe have when they're alone at the cafe or the pub, whatever it is. But they cut a lot of that out, which I think is smart. So Jimmy comes up wearing a school kid's uniform, and they're laughing at him, which is quite funny. Then we talked about it before, the confrontation with the ticket seller. And he's like, the tower is closed this evening. It's like, it's supposed to be open till 7. The tower is usually open until 7. Yesterday, an American had a heart attack up on the tower. The tower is closed this evening. That's a great little payoff, too.
Yep.
It's really narrow. It's a bunch of windy stairs and all that. That he had a heart attack at the top. And now the tower's closed. That's pretty funny. It's like, listen.
He says, "Here, cranky. Here's 100. We're only going to be 20 minutes."
Mm-hmm.
He crumples it up, throws it back at him, does the thing where he
jabs him in the forehead,
jabs his finger into the forehead. Beats his ass and drags him off, and then they go up. The blind boy sees them climb the tower, and he's all upset. He starts walking back towards the crowded area where everybody is.
And then he sees
Jimmy
Ray and
the
Chloe.
dwarf.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Jimmy the Dwarf invites them to see, to go see the filming first, and they say we're just gonna have a quiet one tonight. Um,
Yes.
yeah, and then Eric yeah, well, then we have the whole scene of up in the tower, where Ken just kind of like stands there waiting for Harry to shoot him.
He says, "It is a
Right?
nice town, Harry. I'm glad I got to see it. I didn't mean to take the piss out of it being a fairy tale place. It is a fairy tale place. It really is." And that's Harry's like, it's just a shame it's in Belgium, really. But then you think if it wasn't in Belgium, if it was
If
somewhere
it was
good,
somewhere
there'd be
good.
too many people coming to see it. It'd spoil the whole thing. And so then,
Yeah, somebody mentioned earlier in the chat, like, way to throw shade at the Belgians. This whole movie is
yes.
like the movie is about how Belgium is basically hell on earth,
I
uh,
mean,
which I tend to agree.
yeah. Or at the very
But
least, it's the dichotomy between the type of person who loves all the old buildings and the old Gothic medieval feel and the history, and the type of person it's like, well, there's nothing to fucking do here. It's boring. This place is a hellhole. Yeah. And
yeah,
so now they're up there in the clock tower, and Harry pulls out his gun, and uh, Ken does not. He's like, what are you doing?" He's like, "I'm not gonna fight you anymore, Harry." He's like, "All right, well, I'm blowing your fucking head off." And then he just stands there, and he's like, "Oh, don't you come over all Gandhi? What are you doing?" It's like, "Stop messing him out, please. Pick up your gun. I know I'm gonna beat you anyways because you're a spaz." It's like, Harry, and this is
I
a
love
great
that line,
great
dude.
little character moment from Ken where he's like, "I'm totally in your debt. The things that's gone on between us in the past, I love you unreservedly for all that. For your integrity, for your honor, I love you." And that's such a great little moment because you can tell, because he just got through telling him he's a cunt. Because he obviously meant
Yeah,
that too, but he really means this because, presumably Harry helped catch the guy that murdered his wife and took care of him for him. So
yeah,
he's like forever in his debt, and he loves him for that. And he's like, "But listen, the boy had to be let go. The boy had to be given a chance. And if to do that, I had to say fuck you and fuck what I owe you and fuck everything that's gone on between us, and that's what I had to do. But I'm not fighting you, and I accept totally everything you've got to do. I accept it totally." I love Ken in this movie. He's great.
yeah.
He's such a great character. He's like, "Oh yeah." He's like, "Well, you say all that fucking stuff. I can't fucking shoot you now, can I?" It's like he got to him. He got to his feelings like deep within that cunty shell. He finally found some feelings. He's like, "Wait." He's like, "Well, it's entirely up to you, Harry. It's entirely your call. All I'm saying is I ain't fighting." And so he takes a moment, he puts the gun down, and then he shoots Ken in the leg. And Ken's like, "Oh, you fucking gun." It's like, "Well, it's not like I'm not gonna do anything just because you're standing about like Robert fucking Powell." It's like who, like Robert fucking Powell out of Jesus of fucking
Jesus of
Nazareth.
fucking Nazareth.
It's like, "Oh, shut your whinging. Pick up your gun." Let's Yeah, it's great. So I love that because it says a lot about Harry because clearly some part of that got through to him, right? But he's so strict in his moral code and his principles that have brought him to where he is that he's like, "Well, I can't not do anything."
Can't just do nothing.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll shoot you in
Yeah.
the leg. It's funny because that's obviously way more painful than if you just shot him in the head and killed him instantly.
So at this point, this is when Eric sees Chloe and Ray, and they invite him over, and he immediately takes off running, which they just think is like weird, right? Like he
Yeah.
starts jogging towards the tower,
Yes. And
and
so
he run,
he
yeah,
yeah he runs up the clock tower as Ray and Harry, no fucking hell, I keep doing it,
Ken,
Ken and Harry are making their way down. Harry is helping Ken, though he's like clearly limping. He's losing a lot of blood. He's trying to help him down the windy stairs. And this is a fun, interesting thing about. Well, I guess we'll get to it later, but the blocking and the timing of this scene, I remember thinking like, man, it takes Ray, fucking hell, it takes Harry way too long to get down the clock tower and the timing of it. But then I was saying that to you, and you've been there in person, and you're like, no, it's actually, I can believe it takes that long.
yeah.
Remember that? Yeah.
Yeah, I can't. Like if they haven't, especially since he's helping somebody who can't move very quickly,
Yeah.
right? And like they haven't made it that far down. It would
Yes.
take him. It makes sense. It makes
Yeah.
sense to me.
I like not having been there. I was like, God damn, it takes Harry a long time to get down when he's running down later. But then I guess it really just is that tall and that windy.
Yeah,
So
and
anyway,
that narrow.
and that narrow, yes. And so Eric, the blind little gay boy, he runs up and he says, "The man you're looking for, he's out. He's out in the square." And so, now there's tension between Harry and Ken again. They fight over the gun. Harry manages to, push the gun,
Harry gets the best of him
shoots
and
him in the
like
neck,
shoots him in like yeah, right in the neck.
and blood pouring out. Yeah, yeah. Oh
Yeah,
well, there's a
terrifying scene too. Where he's just like, I mean, the tension and like Ray finds his face when he realizes that he's gonna win
mm-hmm.
is just he really does have like a perfect devilish look for this
Yes,
role.
yes,
It's
he
it's
does.
yeah.
And so he
And he
shoots him in
sees
the
that. I'm
neck.
sorry, Ken. You can't kill a kid and expect to get away with it.
You just can't. Yep.
Yeah.
And so then he goes running down the stairs after him. And then we see Ken. He like slowly, he has managed to work his way up the couple of steps that they had come down thus far. And he's bleeding everywhere and he's kind of pulling himself along the ground. Finally gets back to where they were at the edge of the clock tower. And this is where is the song called On Grafton Street?
It's on Raglan Road.
On Raglan Road. Okay.
Yeah.
I
It's an a well-known Irish
Raglan Road.
song.
Yes.
Yeah.
I get chills every time.
I
Every
know.
fucking
It's
time.
so good.
It's so good, and in the context of the movie, it's a great performance of a great song, and there hasn't been any Irish music in the movie at all before this. And so when we finally get hit with it, it hits really hard because this is the swan song for Ken,
For
obviously.
Ken, yeah.
And oh man, I get chills every time. Every time. It's
And the
so
song is
good.
about a man starting a relationship with a younger woman, a much younger woman,
Hmm.
and how he realizes that he's like, facing heartache at the end of it when it ends. I mean, it's a haunting song, and especially for Ken's character, it's like, as he realizes what's going to happen here, right? It's like he gets up, like he climbs up the tower, hoping to pay off that, from that first 5 minutes of the movie, the scene where he pointed his finger gun down at Ray to the courtyard, but he gets up to the top and it's too foggy to see anything.
Yeah.
So he has to, rapidly hatch a scheme to, figure out how to help Ray out, right? So he drops his coins that he was gonna try to scam his way up into the tower with, from before down to clear the path, right? Or
Yeah.
to clear a landing spot, and he puts the gun in his pocket, he straightens his tie, and he walks off the edge.
Hmm.
And like it is the most, from what I understand, the most accurate representation of somebody who falls from that height, like what
Yeah.
happens to the body
Oh, when
when
it
that
hits the
happens.
ground, it's whoa, it's rough. It's
It is
rough.
horrifying, man.
Yeah. And I
Like
just the imagery, it's a pretty grounded movie. Obviously there's some like religious imagery, but like, and obviously it serves a practical purpose, the coins falling. But
yeah,
something of the imagery of the coins falling from the clock tower in the fog. I don't know, with the music playing, there's something really haunting about that and kind of surreal and
yeah,
fairy tale like, you could say. There's a dream like, there's
yeah.
something about just the way that happens. I love
It
it so
feels like
much.
something that would happen in a Grimm tale, a
Yeah,
Grimm's fairy tale. Yeah.
yeah. And so he falls to his death and kind of half explodes on
He
impact.
splats,
He's
literally splatters on the
yeah.
pavement, on the cobblestones, and
Ken,
that.
Ray reacts to it, and then he runs over. Once he realizes who it is, he starts kind of crying. He's on the ground. He's like, Ken, Ken, he said, and Ken manages to like croak out a Harry's here. And he says, take my gun. And so he reaches into his shirt pocket. He brings out the gun, but it's all busted. It's been destroyed by the fall. It's been crushed. You see all the springs and everything. And he's like, Ken, where's my gun? Where's my gun? And he's sort of losing it. And I love this line. He just goes like, I'm gonna die now, I think.
Yeah.
And then we see the sort of eyes rolling around, and then he finally gives out. It's great. I love the addition of "I think" at the end of that line. You know, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna die now, I think, and then he does.
It's just like it's not a poetic it's not a
No.
poetic way or a poetic final word, but it is something that like you can fully imagine. Like
Yeah.
it's very many people's last words in
Yeah.
situations like that.
Yeah.
There's something very real about it.
Oh yeah. Very real, and like you said, very almost anticlimactic in a good way. Like it's not. He doesn't get a poetic final word like, in a shitty movie it'd be like "live on," or something like that. Something like his final word to him, irrelevant to his
Keep
journey.
moving, Ray.
Keep moving.
Keep moving.
Yeah. It's nothing like that. It's just "I'm
No.
gonna die now, I think," and then he does. Oof. R.I.P.
Oh, and then Harry comes out from the tower and sees it, and like you see his face, like he almost breaks when he
Yeah.
sees his friend like that too.
Yeah.
Hmm. And then he realizes Ray's there,
Mm-hmm. And then he
and
starts
it
shooting
like
at him, and what
starts
I
shooting at him.
because it's so funny because like not 10 minutes earlier in movie time they had that whole conversation about how they're not going to have a firefight in the middle of a bunch of Belgians, not to mention all the other nationalities just on their holidays, and then he just starts having a shootout because
In front of all the
emotionally
Belgians,
he's
not
in a
to mention the
completely different place, you know what I mean,
yeah.
like after all of that. And so like he does just kind of open fire on him, and I can believe him. A as a hothead, A as someone who just had like a pretty emotionally taxing experience having to stick to his principles and essentially kill someone he actually genuinely liked, and then he sees the guy whose fault this all is standing right there, and so any sort of like uh, uh
Reason, yeah, or like
has
yeah.
disappeared. Yeah, and so he just starts shooting at him in public and chasing after him. And this is when the sort of rock music comes into the score. And this is, like I said,
Yeah.
it's the only part of the music in this movie I don't think is all that great. It's fine, but it's just a little like, where did these rock drums come from? It just doesn't. It doesn't feel in keeping with the rest of the movie
It
to
feels
me.
very like thriller chase, mid 2000s thriller chase scene, And I think that it's doing that because this is sort of the action climax of the movie.
Sure. This is the
As he's
payoff
running.
of the like ticking time bomb. Because it's funny because he was watching Rope earlier. I think it was Rope. Yeah, the Alfred Hitchcock
Yeah,
movie.
the
And
Hitchcock movie, yeah.
and there's that famous thing where there's a bomb under the car for like a large chunk of the movie, and you're just kind of waiting for it to go off. And to the extent that this is a crime action thriller, there's been a lot of waiting for the guns to finally go off. There's been a lot of waiting for the bomb to finally explode, and it finally has, where the violence is like, the action has finally exploded onto the screen. And so clearly they want the music to be like to pay off that we're finally doing the action bit now. But it just doesn't. It's a fun chase scene. I like the way it's shot and all that sort of stuff. But the music is just it's okay. It's fine. It's a little underwhelming, I think. Feels a little thrown in and not. It doesn't feel whole with the rest of the music to me. That's
I can understand that.
It's
Yeah,
a mild.
it's
It's a
not.
very mild
Yeah,
complaint. So he's running after him. He's chasing after him. He's shooting. He manages to evade him for a bit. He runs into the hotel, and then he goes up to get his gun. And but Harry has managed to, the map. He knows where the hotel is. Obviously, he put them up here.
yeah,
So he finds the hotel, and he's at the bottom of the stairs, and he's trying to get past the Marie, who is the hotel keeper, and she's like,
Well,
"Well,
I
you're
think one thing also that I really love about this scene before we keep going is that when he goes to find his gun, he finds Ken's last will and testament
yes,
on the on the dresser, and he
yes,
never opens it and reads it, and you never find out what it is that he put down in
yes."
that, but it is, yeah,
Well,
it's it's
it's kind of
it's
mirror.
him confronting death, right? Like
Yeah.
it's him like facing it down now.
It's a mirror or a payoff, whatever how you want to call it, to like Ray's suicide note.
Yeah,
Because
parallel
he
and
knows,
foil to
yeah,
it.
exactly. He knows he's about to die, so he writes his last will and testament. We don't get to read it, which I think is a strong choice. But so now he gets his gun, and Harry's at the bottom, and he says, "I need the key to the room right now." And she said, "I need you to go home, like, you know." Or Ray tells her to like lock up and go home. It's very, very dangerous here. Go home right now. But then Harry comes in. And he says, "Get out of the way." He's like, "No, I won't. I won't get out of your way. You'll have to go through me." He's like, "Well, obviously, I'm not going to go through you, am I? With your baby and that. I'm a nice person." Like, I have
I'm a
standards.
nice
I have
person.
principles. I'm not here to kill you. And then
Well, we see
that
that there's a that's moment of hesitation. Ray leans out of the hotel room and he aims the gun at Harry,
can't get a
but
clean shot. Yeah,
he can't get a clean shot, and he you know he decides it's not worth it,
not
right?
worth. Yeah, for obvious reasons. That's motivated by what's happened before.
Hmm.
And so then he blows his cover on purpose. He says, "Marie, just let him come up. It's okay." It's like, "Harry, like, swear not to start shooting until she's left the hotel." He says, "I swear not to
I
start
swear not to
shooting
start
until she's
shooting
left the hotel. I
until she's
totally
left the
swear."
hotel. I totally swear. It's like kids playing Nerf
Yeah.
guns.
Oh, exactly. Exactly. It's like, "Well, I'm not going anywhere. This is my hotel, so you can fuck off. I suppose you have a gun up there?" "Yeah." "Well, what are we going to do? We can't stand here all night." It's like, "Why don't you both put your guns down and go home?" And Harry's like, "Don't be stupid. This is the shootout." Just, there are a couple lines in this movie. There's like when they have their meet cute at the beginning, and he's like, "How fucking cool." And there are a couple lines like this, like, "This is the shootout," where it kind of feels like the characters are going like, "This is like we're in a movie. Like, this is
Yeah.
the part of the movie where this happens." And I love it. I think it's great. He's like, "Don't be stupid. This is the shootout." And he's like, "I've got an idea. My room faces the canal, right? I'm going to go back to my room, jump into the canal, and see if I can swim to the other side and escape. If you run outside and around the corner, you can shoot at me from there and try to get me. But that way we leave this lady and her baby out of the whole entire thing." It's like, "Do you completely promise to jump into the canal? I don't want to run out there and come back in 10 minutes and find you fucking hiding in a cupboard." And so he completely promises. He's like, "I'm
I'm not
not
gonna
going
have
to."
another kid die on me.
Yes. Great line. Great line. Everything feels so purposeful. Everything feels tied into the
Hmm.
whole, right? And so
Yeah.
and then he's like, "So hang on, I go outside, and which way do I go, right or left?" He's like, "You go right, don't you? You can see it from the doorway. It's a huge fucking canal." It's like, "All right, Jesus, I've only just
Oh,
gotten here,
geez,
haven't
I've only
I?"
just got here, haven't I?
The count of 1, 2, 3, go. This is a joke that I feel like has been used since, but it's really, really effective here. Is the like, "All right, we'll go on 1, 2, 3, go, okay?" And then there's a pause. And it's like, "Well, who says it?" It's like, "Well, you say it. You guys are crazy." And so they run.
Yeah.
They say 1, 2, 3, go. He runs. He jumps. He's going to jump into the canal, but then he sees a boat coming by, so he jumps onto that instead, so he can get away a little faster. Harry runs
This
outside.
is the one point that kind of bugs me a little bit, right? Is I understand why he does this, right? Because he jumps onto the boat,
Mm-hmm.
but then he gets up on his knees,
Yeah.
and like presents essentially a full target, right?
Yeah.
While looking back at
Yep.
Harry.
Yep.
And the thing that he could do here
It's
quite
lie flat.
easily is
Yes.
just lie flat on the boat and
Mm-hmm.
make it much more difficult for him to be hit. And I get that the reason is because he's kind of cocky. He thinks that Harry's too far away.
It's.
Um,
I wouldn't even say cocky. I just think he assumes there's no way Harry would even try that shot, especially with the guy driving the boat behind him and everything.
well,
And
yeah, and then there's the other issue, right? Is that like the bullets going through and hitting people
yep. Yep.
behind him is going to be a big deal later on, right?
Yes. It
It's
was earlier,
already
and it will
been
be at the end.
thematically,
Yeah.
yeah,
So, and then
um,
yeah, I totally
yeah.
agree. This is one of the weakest points in the movie. So, like you said, he's not doing anything to make himself harder to hit. He doesn't think he's going to shoot the shot, which is understandable to a degree, but he clearly lines it up like he's going to try. So you think he might have tried to duck down or something, but he
Like, yeah,
doesn't.
he could just duck down and be
Yeah.
like, instead of just saying, "No way, you're way too far."
But he takes
Like,
the shot
maybe just
with his pistol and he hits him right in the side. And I think what's clumsy about this, other than the things you've already mentioned, is like you said, the bullet doesn't go through and hit the guy driving the boat directly behind him, like you think it might, given Uh,
given the ending of the
given the
film.
ending
Um,
and the backstory
Now,
of the
the
film.
one thing that I could say
Hmm.
is that these are hollow points. These are dum-dums, right? So they do explode, sort of, on their way out, right?
Hmm.
So if we were going to be consistent in that and say like, well, they don't travel very far after they hit, because that's sort of their thing, is that they like, kind of just explode outward, and yeah, then maybe. But later on, we're
But it
gonna
doesn't
have,
explode when it hits him or
yeah,
anything.
it does. No, it just, well, it does create a pretty sizable hole.
Sure, I
The way
suppose.
that you
Yeah, that's
might,
fair. That's fair.
yeah.
Yeah, and so
It,
the other thing that's clumsy about it is that the guy driving the boat doesn't even react. He
yes,
doesn't jump. He doesn't turn around.
that's really the bigger issue, right? Is
Yeah,
like, yeah, maybe it just missed, right? Like
yeah.
I could believe if it just
Absolutely, yeah.
missed, but the guy driving the boat doesn't even turn around or
He's just
react
an
to the fact
extra, and he didn't really react the way he probably should have. This is probably the clumsiest scene in the whole movie for those like two or three reasons stacked on top of each other. I do like
yeah,
it in general and what it's going for, but the directing is a
it's
little
a
clumsy.
yeah. This is another instance, the second that we've had of maybe some blocking that could have used a little bit of polish,
Yeah, because if he tried to duck down or something, that would solve that problem. He could still get hit. If the guy behind him driving the boat heard the shot and looked back in a quick panic, that would have solved basically all the problems of the scene.
Yeah,
Because it doesn't have to be that it hit the guy behind him as well. That's just a.
yeah, exactly.
But anyway, he gets shot. He gets let off the boat, and then he's stumbling around. Harry's running after him. He rounds the corner onto and this is such a great choice, Hugh. He rounds the corner onto the film set where they're filming some sort of nighttime dream sequence that was set up briefly with Jimmy telling him, "Hey, we're filming a sequence tonight. I think it actually might be good for once. You should come check it out." And they're like, we're gonna have a quiet night instead. But anyway, here he is, and he rounds the corner, and there's all this fake snow being blown around. There's people in like old timey, like nun costumes and stuff like that. But then as he goes further and further, we see people wearing like animal masks, like they're figures out of a Hieronymus Bosch painting. So now he's like,
Yep.
and so the symbolism comes crashing in, and I love the sort of logical justification for it being this like nighttime dream sequence that they're filming, but then he's just running through this like nightmare painting. It's so good. It's so
Yeah, it
good.
really is.
Passing by all these
We've
people,
The
giving him
final
these looks.
judgment is
Yep,
here.
this is
Yep.
the final judgment of the movie, and he's being chased by Harry. And I can totally believe Harry as the kind of person who has thrown all caution to the wind at this point and is perfectly willing to shoot him in front of everyone. You know what I mean? It's not a smart thing to do it so publicly. And like obviously he's acknowledged that earlier, but at this point he's a very hot-tempered person. He's very much motivated by anger, but also by honor and principle and stuff like that. And he's had, he just had to kill. He just saw, a longtime friend and coworker get killed, and he was very much responsible for that. And this guy who's caused all the problems has managed to evade him this far. And so he just shoots him in front of everybody. Like, I can believe that for sure. And so, like, he shoots him in front of everyone. The bullets go through him. It kind of goes to slow-mo like it did with the priest in the flashback. That's a really nice touch because there's not a lot of slow-mo in the movie, but when it does happen, it's quite impactful. So he gets shot. He collapses to the ground, and he says, "The
Well, he
boy."
says the little boy first, and then he says, "That's right, Ray," the little boy, and shoots him
Yes.
a few times.
Yeah.
And then Ray collapses to the ground, starts crawling. And Harry, like, we get the camera pan up of Harry's point of view as Ray's crawling on the ground, and then there's a little schoolboy with no head. Um,
Yes. Obviously,
and
the dramatic irony is that we, as an audience, know that that's Jimmy, the dwarf. May he rest in peace, racist as he was.
that was just
That was just
cocaine.
cocaine. He has been killed, and now, like, it's that point when you finally see it. You're like, oh fuck, I see what we're doing. I know where this
Yep.
is going. If you've been paying any attention, so he sees what looks like a little boy with no head, and he goes, "Oh, I see." and Ray tries to stop him because Ray's like, no,
And
like,
he puts the gun in his mouth, like on the
yes,
fucking spot, like he said,
like he
right?
said he would, because he's a man of
And Ray
principle.
goes, "No, Harry, he's not." And he goes, "You got to stick to your principles."
And
Boom,
he kills himself on the spot.
on the fucking spot.
On the fucking spot. That's such a perfect ending for Harry. It really is.
It really
Like,
is.
that's so good. That's such a great way of just bringing all of these little threads back together in one moment. Because as someone mentioned earlier, I think it was Male Council of Karens, it's a film about redemption and honor and principles. And like, Harry is obviously the guy who thinks if you do something that horrible, you should just kill yourself, no questions asked. Like,
Yes.
you've crossed this line. There is no redemption. There's no way to make up for it. You just need to go. It's that simple. And if you were a man of honor and principle, you would just kill yourself on the spot. That's his approach, obviously. Ray thinks basically what he did is so insurmountably, irredeemably terrible that he probably should just kill himself. He doesn't know how to move on with his life. Meanwhile, Ken is the only one really who's tried hard to be like, listen, like you can, you can't undo what you did, but you can move forward. You can, you'll never be able to fully make up for what you did, but you can do good things in the future that wouldn't happen if you were dead. Right? You can save the next boy, or at the very least, you can just do anything good at all, and that would be better than if you were dead. Right? And so he voices that perspective, and there's a sort of like, the angel and devil on his shoulder, so to speak. And then we see Harry's principles get tested, and we find out that like, he means it. And so like this sort of very deeply ironic, absurd set of circumstances results in him thinking he killed a child as well. And he has that sort of like almost knowing attitude. Like I love the way he says, "Oh, I see." Like, oh, like he's like almost seeing the story, the narrative that he's in for a moment, and he's like, "Oh, okay, I see. We're testing. It's happening to me now. I see." Like, that's so great. That's so good. I love it. So then he blows his head completely off, and so that's the end of Harry's story. And so now all that's left is Ray.
Yeah, and the final monologue for Ray, and I think
it's
I think I would like you to read this one.
Yes, because this is one of my favorite. This is one of my favorite endings to a movie ever, and I'm so glad that they went with this instead of what's in this shooting script, because it's so much better. So, the problem is that monologue is not in the shooting script at all.
Really? Okay, what was the monologue in the shooting script?
Well, there is no monologue in the shooting script. I'll describe it really quick before we get to what actually happens. Before we get to the real ending, let's do the ending they didn't go with, because I think we'll both. It'll be interesting. It'll be revealing. So. He blows his head off. Ray slumps back down. The gunshot rings in his ears and all other sound is gone. Ray's POV, looking up at the misty night sky and the roofs of the old buildings around as the snow falls heavy. Then, in turn, at the horrifying Bosch figures looking down at him. This all happens, right? This is how the actual movie plays out, but with voiceover over it. No voiceover here. At the horrifying Bosch figures looking down at him, at one-eyed Eric somehow amongst them, looking as guilty as Judas, at the dismayed, tear-stricken face of Chloe being dragged away from him, screaming, silently, in parentheses, at the ambulance men and doctors whose grim countenances don't seem to hold out too much hope, at, from somewhere almost heavenly, Marie, whose gentle, angelic, smiling face makes him think it might all work out all right in the end. As the oxygen goes on, he's as loaded into the... As the oxygen goes on, as he's loaded into the too bright ambulance, Ray's POV fades to black. That is that's how visually that is
visually
how
that's how
ends.
it plays out, but there was no voiceover.
No voice, but there's a whole nother scene that comes after it. If you have time, we should go through it because
yeah, I do.
Interior room, day, close shot of a newspaper headline seemingly reading In Bruges. We pull back to reveal the headline actually reads 3 die in Bruges bloodbath. We pull back further to reveal beneath the headline the photos of Harry, Jimmy, and Ken. This whole piece of paper has been pinned to a wall. A telephone starts ringing. Sitting on his bed, his chest and stomach wrapped in bandages, is Ray, the newspaper article pinned to the wall to the side of him. It's 3 months since the shooting. He's unshaven and sickly looking. The phone is still ringing. He puts a couple of ice cubes from the tray beside his bed into his glass, pours some whiskey in and drinks. The phone finally stops ringing. Ray gets up, still in pain, and moves across the room, passing another newspaper headline on the wall, reading, quote, "Still no clues in murder of little Tobias," along with a large happy picture of the little boy from the church. Also pinned to the wall is the little boy's confession note. That's the one that said being
Yeah.
moody, being sad, all that. As we see these, we hear Ray open a cupboard, take something metallic out. Phone starts ringing again. Ray sits back on the bed in the same position as before, takes another sip of whiskey, and picks up the phone. He doesn't speak. Chloe, hello, hello, Raymond. Raymond, is that you? Please, Raymond. He says, hello, Chloe. And she says, Ray, you went back to London? He says, mm-hmm. I wanted to take care of you. They said it was okay to leave? He says, to leave Bruges? She says, to leave the hospital. I stayed in Bruges 3 months longer than I ever intended to. I wasn't staying any longer. Are you going to come back? I don't think so, he says, almost tearfully. Well, I can come to London to see you. He says, no. She says, Raymond, please, don't be horrible. I'm not being horrible. Then let me come to see you. I'm not going to be here. Where are you going to be? There's a pause. Ray, come back to Bruges. Ray says, I don't like Bruges. She says, you do like Bruges. He says, I don't like Bruges. It's a shithole. He smiles as he says, I don't like Bruges. Right? Chloe laughs. Say you like Bruges just a little bit. Ray, say you like Bruges just a little bit. He says, I like Bruges just a little bit. She says, do you really? He said, I like the Swans. And a couple of the people. Oh, that lady from the hospital, is her name Marie? I met her on the street yesterday. She had a baby boy. Ray says, did she? Yes. That's good. Chloe says, 7 pounds. He says, that's good. What's she going to call it? What's she going to call it? She did tell me. I can't remember. Something like Tobias or something. Ray half laughs, sick to his stomach. Chloe says, I think it's a nice name. He says, I think it's a nice name too. Listen, Chloe, I've got to hang up now. She says, what? He says, I've got to hang up. Well, you got to hang up. You wouldn't let me see you all 3 months while you were in the hospital, even though I came every day. Then you run back to England without even telling me. And then when I finally speak to you, you speak for 2 minutes, and then you have to hang up? Why do you have to hang up? Why? And Ray says, it's for your own good, Chloe. And she says, it's not for my own good. How is it for my own good? Tell me why you have to hang up. I've waited for 3 months, Ray. Tell me why I have to hang up. He says, Ray says, why do I have to hang up? He says, yes, why do you have to hang up? He says, because I don't want you to hear the gunshot. Ray hangs up, then takes the receiver off the hook and lays it down. It will quietly drone through the rest of the scene. A tear falls as he takes the gun that was resting in his lap, holds it in the air for a second, breathes deeply for a few moments, and then places it against his head. He holds it there for a long while, eyes closed, deep breathing, then finally takes it away, opens his eyes, picks up his whiskey glass, sighing, and slowly finishes it off. Courage regained, he puts the glass back down, breathes deeply again, and puts the gun back up to his head. Ray, to himself, says, come on. 10, 9, 8, 7. He closes his eyes. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Teeth gritted, eyes clamped tight. 10 more seconds pass till he finally sighs loudly, takes the gun away again, and leans his head back against the wall. He looks at the photos on the wall from the newspaper story of Jimmy, of Harry, and, lingeringly, of Ken. None of them want him to go through with it. Then finally, he looks at the photo of the little Tobias and the blood-stained confession note beside it. He moves across the bed and takes the confession note from the wall, knocking into the telephone slightly as he does so. He looks at the phone a while as it irritatingly drones on. He puts the phone back on the hook and looks at it a very long while to see if it'll ring. It doesn't ring. He sits on the edge of his bed, shitty London framed out of the window behind him. He looks at the confession note again, as do we, Ray's POV, one being sad, being bad at maths, being moody, and the months-old blood still caked in the corner. He folds the note into his left breast pocket beside his heart. He nods. Ray, you've got to stick to your principles. He cocks the gun. He slowly puts it to his head. Tears fill his eyes, and he closes them as the tears fall. He sighs calmly, knowing, perhaps for the first time, that this time he'll go through with it. The telephone starts ringing. He opens his eyes. Cut to black.
That's not good.
I agree with you.
Yeah, that I don't like that at all. actually.
I,
He made a really solid choice cutting that out.
I agree with you. I don't think
Wow.
that's a very good ending. I would have been annoyed if that was the ending if I watched the movie for the first time.
Yeah, I don't know that I would have liked that. I really don't.
And
Good
so,
on him. Good on him for changing that up, honestly.
yeah, because there's a lot of things that are interesting about that. There are moments in that I like. There's like little
Yeah,
bits of
there are
dialogue,
moments.
where I'm like, he's got the dialogue down. It's quite good. There's some funny little moments in that, but it goes on a long time from the sounds of it.
Yeah.
It's scripted to go for a long time. You know what I mean? And there's so many things that are a bit too on the nose, like that her child is also going to have the same name of the kid he killed. Like
Yeah.
that's too much. I think the fact that she's going to have a baby and it's going to be a boy is enough. You know,
Yeah.
that's all you need. I think so.
Yeah.
It goes on too long, and so I wonder if they shot that or not, because what they did like the way the scene preceding it, the penultimate scene, the way that ends is how the movie ends, except that they added voiceover. But did they add the voiceover later? Because that voiceover is not in the script.
Yeah, they must have. Well, I mean, they must have added it,
Yeah,
at some point, either during production or post.
yeah,
But like it that helps bookend the beginning too, where it's like
yes, yes. Starts with
it's a
starts with his
voiceover. It
narration.
just this is one of those crazy moments, right? Where it's like you wonder how he didn't see it, at the beginning,
Yes.
when you go to write it, because it feels like such a natural conclusion when you get to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you come to find out, like, actually it's a little bit like one of the things that Patrick, our program director at Micah, used to say all the time about La La Land, right? Is like how that big number in traffic in La La Land that opens the movie was apparently supposed to be, it was scripted to go in the middle of it, but
That would
it's
have been
like,
terrible.
then you're like, wait, why would that go in the middle? That's like the only way that you can imagine that entire scene opening the movie. Like, it's the only way you can imagine it. And this is one of those things where I'm like, it's wild that you wouldn't, that even up until shooting you would have got to this point where it's like that's the ending of the movie without realizing, like, no, the way that you did it is like actually perfect.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. So I totally agree that the movie was saved by changing the ending. I don't think that
Yeah.
would have ruined it, but it would have been a rather sour note because
Well,
even
Woojim is saying it's way too much to communicate basically the same thing, and it is. It is kind of communicating the same thing. It's definitely way too much,
yeah,
but I think the
it's
way
not
that,
even the
like,
same thing because he's still thinking about killing himself. And
yeah,
the way the movie actually ends, he's resolved that bit finally, and the ambiguity is whether he'll live, not whether he wants to kill himself anymore.
yeah,
And that's way better for me. I think that's way stronger. So let's read the actual ending. So uh, in that penultimate scene of him being carried away in the ambulance and seeing all the horrible Bosch figures, the actors in the dream sequence they were filming, he sees Eric in the crowd, the blind little gay boy. He sees Chloe. He sees Marie, which is a great naming choice for her, by the way. And
yep,
then he's loaded into the ambulance, right? And as all that's happening, we go back, we echo the very beginning of the movie with his voiceover. And he says, "There's a Christmas tree somewhere in London with a bunch of presents underneath it that'll never be opened. And I thought, if I survive all this, I'll go to that house, apologize to the mother there, and accept whatever punishment she chose for me. Prison, death, it didn't matter, because at least in prison, and at least in death, I wouldn't be in fucking Bruges." But then, like a flash, it came to me, and I realized, fuck, man, maybe that's what hell is. The entire rest of eternity spent in fucking Bruges. And I really, really hoped I wouldn't die. I really, really hoped I wouldn't die. And then we get that final, rather like unceremonious, anticlimactic final shot of just the ceiling of the ambulance kind of off kilter. and then we cut to black, and that's the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Now that is one of the best endings in any movie I've ever seen. That's
Yeah.
incredible. The other one would have been a disappointment, I think. Why is that so incredible?
I'm
Well,
trying to like put myself into the into the mindset of like if I had seen it with that original ending first, would I be as disappointed? Because
you don't know what you
it's
would have
hard to
lost.
separate.
Yeah,
I don't know.
hard
I
to
don't
say.
know. It's hard to say, but I do know that it is not anywhere near as strong as the ending that they went with.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
why is that ending so strong? Well, first of all, if you're thinking about what he can do as a result of, how he can continue living, how he can possibly redeem himself for doing something so horrible, right? And what he eventually concludes is, I need to go face justice for what I did. That, like, because Ken's trying to help him out earlier, trying to tell him to keep moving. He can just go start a new life somewhere in Europe, but that's not really the answer, right? You think maybe it's an answer, but he gets pulled back in because that's not the answer, right? Assuming, if you will, the hand of God controlling and puppeting this situation such that he can't escape Bruges until he gets the right answer. Like, you just running away and starting a new life isn't the right answer, because you should probably face justice for what you did, and you should accept
Yeah.
that justice if you want to redeem yourself, and that's better than just killing yourself, right? So
Yes.
that's the movie's answer, is that he's like, well, whatever happens, if I live, I'm going to, and you hope and you pray, whatever, that like he would actually go through with that, and that he wouldn't just wake up in the hospital and decide, maybe I should kill myself again. Like, that's so lame. So like you hope that,
well, like he realizes, he's like, because he says like, I'm gonna go face justice, and if she wants me dead, then I will die, right? And
yes,
then he says, wait a minute, maybe I don't want to be dead, actually.
yeah,
I think like now that he's basically, because he's like right on the cusp of it, and he's realizing he doesn't want to be dead. He wants to live,
yeah. Well,
right? And he's
yeah,
hoping that he's not going to die.
yeah,
That's
but
that's the change
yeah,
in his character right there. Like
mm-hmm.
Wasserman is saying, in the original, there's no change in him, not until the phone rings, right? Like at the end,
Yes,
and it's much more not even ambiguous. It's much harder to act that out, right? To be like,
yeah,
oh no, I actually like. I'm hoping the phone will ring so that I don't have to kill myself like I've decided that I should, but I don't really want to go through with it. But I have this moment of like epiphany and clarity as he's being wheeled into the ambulance,
mm-hmm.
coupled with this like the shot of the too bright ambulance as he describes it, right? It's like, yeah, he's going towards the light and he doesn't want to. He
Mm-hmm.
doesn't want to die,
Yeah.
right? He
The
doesn't
whole
want
movie
to.
he's wanted to kill himself, and now he finally realizes that he doesn't.
Yeah.
It's two things. It's that he doesn't want to die anymore, but also there's still the, like, if she decides that that's what she wants, I'll do that. But he doesn't want to kill himself anymore. He really
Yeah.
hopes to live, because he really has finally actually believed that he can do something good with his life going forward, and that he hasn't irredeemably fucked up. I mean, that he could
Yeah,
actually do
exactly.
good in his life.
That he can be redeemed. He's finally
Yes.
realized that he has a pathway to redemption.
Yes. And so the ambiguity is not, does he still want to die? The ambiguity is, okay, well, will fate let him live? Because
Yeah.
because when I mentioned my friend who said like the movie bummed me out, and I'm just like, yeah, but the movie to me isn't depressing, because the movie is about someone who's horribly depressed, and for good reason, eventually coming to terms with it and realizing that, like, he can actually move forward and live his life and try to do good. But it starts with actually just facing justice for what he did and accepting whatever punishment they feel is appropriate. But he does wish to live, because he does think he can do good in the world as a result. And he that concludes his arc. He's sort of made it out, essentially, of purgatory, and the only ambiguity is whether, the hand of God, whether fate will actually let him or not. But ultimately, it's not the kind of ambiguous ending that you go, oh well, like nothing happened, because what happened was internal. And that, like,
Yeah.
his internal journey did conclude. His external journey, maybe. We'll see. Leave it up to the imagination. And that's
Yeah.
such a good ending. And what's nice about that, so maybe he did film that original ending and decided it didn't work, or maybe he decided it didn't work somewhere in the process of filming and they didn't actually record it. But in terms of just filmmaking problem solving, which is what a lot of filmmaking is, you have that scene of him being loaded into the ambulance and you realize, oh, well, I could have a little voiceover over this and that would solve the problem. I don't need a final scene after that. I can just end right here because this is the natural ending of the movie anyway. You know what I mean? Like, and it all
Yeah.
just kind of clicks into place like that. And it's really interesting to know that such a well-written story had a lesser ending that had to be fixed in the process.
Workshopped. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I find that really fascinating. I love this ending. I think it's a great little morality play that has some actually quite deep running themes in it that
In addition
also,
to a lot of blue humor, you know.
yeah, in addition to a lot of like karate chopping midgets in the neck and
And a lot of retards being dropped,
yes,
and
calling people blind little gay boys and stuff like that. Stop whinging like a big gay baby. So it has everything I want in a movie, essentially. It has a lot of blue humor, a lot of off-color humor, but also there's a real heart at the core of the story, and we're dealing with really important issues here, like whether a person can be redeemed after they've done something so horrible or not, and whether they would want to. And the sort of cosmic joke of being trapped somewhere like Bruges until you've solved, because he mentions maybe that's what hell is, eternity spent in fucking Bruges, and it's like, that's a funny line, but like we said earlier, like, this is purgatory or purgatory,
Yeah.
as they say it. And yeah, it's great, and I love it.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Somebody's Council of Karen said maybe you can see why the Bruges Tourist Board don't promote this film.
Maybe
It's like,
that's
you're
yeah.
calling our town hell on earth,
Yeah.
the literal
Yeah, it's no
torturous
wonder, but it
purgatory.
is
Like,
literally all I know about Bruges comes from this movie. And if I ever do go there, like, I'm
you
gonna,
can lean into the
yeah,
joke. You
you
you know
could.
you can have fun with it
I mean, if I ever go, I'm going to
instead
the
of just
clock
pretending it
tower.
doesn't exist.
The guidebook says it's a must see.
Guidebook says it's must see. People will take pens and write things in on the beams of the clock tower. Like
Yeah,
X was here, all that kind of stuff. If you do go and you see R.I.P. Brendan Gleeson, you will know I
you'll have
have been there
seen your
before.
work. Yes.
You'll have seen my work.
Yeah. And yeah, so that's In Bruges. It's I think I really believe what I said in the title, that it's one of the greatest dark comedies of all time. When I was thinking of writing that title, I decided to Google it. I'm like, okay, what are some of the other greatest dark comedies of all time? And I was looking at some of them. I'm like, yeah, this is way better than a lot of them. I think this is, for me, the quintessential dark comedy. I think it's
Yeah.
it rides that line, and it's really kind of a 50-50 split between, a very violent and macabre sort of depressing story about grief and redemption and purgation and all that sort of stuff, and also just one of the funniest off-color comedies I've ever seen in my life. I think so. I have a Blu-ray of it, and on the cover there's a pull quote that described it as delightfully un-PC, and yeah, I think that's true.
I think that's very true.
There's
Yeah.
something very refreshing about it, because it feels very realistic. All the dialogue feels like how people often talk in real life. You know what I mean? Not how writers wish they talked, with the exception of like all the comical repetition. But there's a good mix, I think, a really nice balance, and I think balance is the best word for the success of this movie. There's a balance between really poetic moments of dialogue and moments of dialogue that are very anti-poetic on purpose. Like I think I'm gonna die now, I think, is very kind of anti-poetic, but there are other lines that are really Really, you know, one that sounds very similar. Though, like, I really, really hoped I wouldn't die. That is a very
Yeah.
poetic end to this story, but it also just feels very natural. It feels very, it's very simple, right? At the end of the day, that's what it comes down to for him. And
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. And I think, yeah, we've talked about this before. I think eventually it'll be nice to visit some of his other work and make a full determination. But very rarely is a director's first film their best.
yeah,
I think in this case, still, even though I do like the rest of his movies, I still think this one takes the cake for Martin McDonagh's filmography. I think this is his best work, and it's really impressive
yeah, yeah,
that he did it like on a first. You know, that's
yeah.
this is his first venture into it.
This is one of my favorite movies of all time. I absolutely adore it. Like I said, it has everything you could want. You know, I just think everything about the movie, from a technical perspective, is in service of the story in a really
Hmm.
masterful way, in a very simple, like not flashy way as well. Like I think this movie is shot and edited very well, but I don't think a lot of people would think about the editing really. They would just go, yeah, it was good. They're not going to, you know, there's editing that draws attention to itself, and that can obviously have its place in something really stylish as well. But everything's very simple and effective in this movie. It just feels like, yeah, that's the perfect shot choice for something like that, you know. And it has a lot of traditional coverage, but it's very effective in using traditional coverage. You know, for example, like from a technical perspective, there's the scene with Harry and Ken. They're sitting at the outdoor bar out in the town square at night, and they're having a conversation. And at first, they're a little standoffish with each other. You know, the camera is on very long lenses, and we're shooting over the shoulder. They're like, you know, it's an over the shoulder, like the shoulder of the other character is sort of muddying the frame a little bit. And, you know, shot on very long lenses. So the background is completely gone. It's just a bunch of bokeh. All the lights are just big ovals and everything like that. And it's like, you know, it's that's sort of like the, you know, the spy, not spy, but like action thriller way you might shoot a scene. But then there's a point in the conversation where the tone changes, and we cut into, and this is when, you know, Harry is trying to tell him, like, listen, like, it's a matter of fucking principle, right? When that shot happens, we cut into like actually very wide angle lenses very close to the face, right? So it's a very like jarring, in a good way, jump in between like the type of lens being used to really communicate a big change in the emotion of that scene. And little things like that aren't like the kind of stuff that people are going to make video essays about, you know, because, like, you know, there's plenty of stuff in other films where it's very flashy. It's very, you know, like any Quentin Tarantino movie, for example, you know, the way he
Yeah.
uses the camera. But I just feel like this movie is very successful using simple, straightforward movie grammar, if that makes
Yep.
sense. And there's a lot,
Solid fundamentals.
yeah,
Just yeah.
very fundamentally sound movie. Aside from a couple little things that we've talked about, where, like, you know, it's a little
Maybe the
clumsy.
blocking could have, yeah,
Yeah,
blocking is a little clumsy, maybe could have been improved, you know.
yeah,
Apart from those little mo things, I just, and they don't detract from
not much
overall
really.
enjoyment. They're the
No,
kind of things that like you'll only notice if you're really zeroing in,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. It's a
Yeah.
very tight script. It's very coherent movie. It all feels like one. Like you feel like you're in good hands when you're watching it, and it has everything I could want from a movie. And I'm glad we talked about it from a birthday, because it's nice to talk about a good movie every once in a while. We talked about Big Trouble in Little China the other week, and that was a lot of fun. But before that, there were a few duds in a row with Sinners and things like that. So it's nice to go back to a movie like this and be like, damn, that's really good. That's just that's what we need more of. I look forward to whatever his next movie is, because you know,
Yeah, I think he hold on, I think I saw something about it.
no.
His brother did a movie called The Guard with Brendan Gleeson and Don Cheadle that I thought was very funny.
Oh, I didn't know
Um,
he had a brother.
yeah, it flew under the radar a little bit. It's not quite as good as anything.
John
Like
Michael
I don't know if it's
McDonough.
as good as
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm looking at a picture of him. He looks like him.
Yeah.
I can tell that they're brothers.
Wild Horse 9, I believe, is the upcoming film by him, starring Sam Rockwell, John Malkovich, Steve Buscemi, Parker Posey, and Tom Waits. That's all the information that we have on that one.
Wild Horse 9. Okay. Yeah,
So that's a solid little cast following him.
I'll basically watch anything he does forever. I would love to get another movie that I think is as good as In Bruges. Even if he never gets there, he'll still be one of my favorite filmmakers of all time because I think this
Yeah,
is like one of the best movies ever, in my humble personal opinion. So, Martin McDonagh, you're a real one. Keep it up. Proud of you. Keep doing
indeed.
good work. So, did you have any closing thoughts?
No, I have no closing thoughts. Great
Yeah.
movie. Highly recommend. Anybody who hasn't seen it or any of his others. I can't really speak totally on Seven Psychopaths, but I know it probably doesn't suck. And I'd like to revisit that
Yeah, I
at
don't
some
know if
point.
any of his movies suck,
Yeah,
but
I think you would do yourself a service watching any of his movies,
sure,
honestly.
absolutely.
Yeah. Happy birthday, Jamie.
Oh, thanks, man.
Happy, I think I can hear my parents downstairs listening to the stream, so happy 15 years cancer-free, Mom.
Yes,
And I'll be right
congratulations.
down. We can go, celebrate, do some stuff,
All right, well, I'll
get
let
some
you go
dinner.
because you got to hard out. Thank you all for joining us. I hope you enjoyed us just reading through all the dialogue of In Bruges and laughing. I hope that was fun for you because it was fun for me. It's always nice to just talk about good movies. So, thank you again for joining us. Thank you all for your fun contributions in chat and for the super chats. We certainly appreciate it. We'll be back hopefully next Sunday with whatever that will be. And
Something,
until next
I'm
time,
sure.
bye bye. See you
Bye.
later. Sayonara. All right. Well, it sounds like you got to run, so I'm going to let you go.
We're all set.